Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Is that
so
going around too?
including one of her employees, and she had to do the deliveries because her employee got strep.
I'm feeling a little bit under the weather just because of I had my second shingles shot yesterday. Um,
Let's get
it's artificial though.
I had a hell of a day on Friday. So, get
Oh
this.
yeah, is that the
Okay.
thing that you described? Wait, you Friday yesterday or last Friday?
No, Friday yesterday, as in like Friday my time, which is Thursday your time. So
and just
we
so
did
you know,
finish our.
we are now live, so we're in our BS warm
Oh,
up session. So
okay.
just so we don't do any other names, and welcome in, Radhon. He's muted.
Howdy.
Yeah, he might still be setting up.
So
there we are. I should be unmuted now.
Hello, hello.
Richard, take it you didn't get a chance to fill in the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now. It just occurred to me this morning that I hadn't done that yet.
Well, it is a great thing that you showed up this week, Radhon, because we have a man half down with a sore throat. And your dulcet tones, you're going to outshine all of us on the reading because we're just like, pleb readers.
Oh, silence. Your voice is lovely.
Radhop should just do all the readings today.
Well, yeah, but you have the dramatic style. Like, I'm sure me and Despy could get into it because we're old theater kids, but we'd have to work at it. You just naturally fall into it, my friend.
I've been a performative wanker for a long time.
And a good one. It's one of the things that drew me to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was God, almost 3 years ago now. The first time I saw you.
It's been a good while. Thank you for poking me to be on this.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll need to see how my energy threshold goes, so we will be going quite into the wee small hours.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's late timing for you.
Yeah, it is just past 11 p.m. for me currently.
I was about to say, I think you and Despy are in the same time zone or one apart.
One apart. I'm at what is it? It's 10 o'clock my time. So I'm assuming that you are around the Sydney region.
Yes. Whereabouts are you at?
I'm what is it, in Northeast Japan?
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So when I told you that it was not a big deal to like work with your time if we need to change days, as I told you, I'm working around because we also have Beckett in the UK. We have Eucharist in another time zone from us. That we're working with people from all over the place.
That makes sense.
Okay.
We don't mind moving around.
So anybody that have notes that we need to bring up from last week? No? All right.
It'd be nice to know where we're doing the reading from.
I have it shared on screen right now. We read from Longfellow, but we end up doing commentary from Sayers, from Chiardi, from everybody.
Musa.
So I have. I don't know if this will be a compatible version, but I have this beautiful illustrated copy, illustrated by Gustave Doré.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, every once in a while too, we also look at the Blake illustrations. Find those online.
Yeah, we do need to. We do need to spend a whole stream on that because we will absolutely go all off onto it.
There's a romantic element to it that I like to talk about that I think Jack thinks is a little cringe, but it's the idea that he died before he completed it, and so as he was doing Paradiso, you get less and less detail because he did them in layers, right? So he did the base layer for like 10 of them, and then he'd do the next layer for like 8 of them, so on. And so each one gets less and less detailed until you just get blank sheets, which I think is like very appropriate for Paradiso. Paradiso. Like you're getting closer and closer to that which cannot be understood.
Is there somewhere that I can get a link to the version that's being read from?
I have it shared in Discord right now if you would like. I have my screen shared inside here.
Yeah, I'm just. Okay, I can bring that up here. It just means that on my stream, your lovely faces get minimized.
Oh, and yeah, I mean, like, honestly, I end up doing the same thing. We're in a little corner in the bottom right, so, but
Yeah.
the reading is the most important part, and that's why, like, at least on my stream, perhaps I could learn to do this better later, but I try to keep the reading portion as big for the audience so that the people who watch the videos later can read along with us, catch little mistakes we get, insights that we don't get due to punctuation, etc. All right, so if you are joining us again this week, this is Canto 10 of Dante's Inferno. This is as we are exiting past the city of Dis. This is, at least in my opinion, one of the most colorful portions within the Inferno, because it allows you to see like multiple emotional states from Dante in ambiguous form throughout. Due to his multi-layered nature, we end up getting a lot more insight into his emotional state in this particular canto than the previous ones. And I think it shows between the slight dichotomy between Virgil and Dante. As we passed Dis last week, we did a little bit of research. We realized that the reasons that these gates were unbarred is due to particular scriptural implications of the locks being broken during Jesus's passage through hell, so on and so forth. And as we started to progress past the city, we start to transition into the next circle. So like this is again we're getting through one of the transitionary periods within the story, and it's funny because we're in Canto 10 and we're already in Circle 6. So like it should show how much level of detail he expresses as he gets towards the end of the Inferno, because it gets wider and wider as we go from here.
Now I know the premise of I know the premise of the Divine Comedy, but even having this lovely book, I've never actually read it. So,
really,
full journey of discovery.
To be fair, neither have I. So, we're on this journey together.
Yeah,
I can see that this book has a different translation, so I'm just going to be reading from.
Well,
who's the translator in your case?
Yeah, we may have that on the spreadsheet that we're going to eventually start putting in the descriptions of these, because we've been putting basically a spreadsheet of all the translations.
Reverend Francis Carey.
Oh, somebody we have not been using up till now, so there may be useful commentary in there we have not seen thus far.
Excellent. Well, I will keep the book open for purposes of, as being able to enjoy.
That is beautiful
illustrations.
Artwork. God, Despy, could you imagine the effort it would take to carve that engravement panel for that print?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
This is a minor ask, but could you possibly flip that around? The fact that it's mirrored has been getting to me.
Okay, sorry, I've got it. So it's unmirrored for me. Hang on, just give me a moment.
Yeah, Discord is annoying that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why if you noticed all the stuff in my background, you can't read for shit for that very reason. I make sure it's all very far away.
Oh, there went my camera.
Oh, Despy, what's going on with your camera, mate?
I have no clue.
This is the first. I've never had this issue with your camera before. Is it overheating or?
No.
So just letting my chat know that while I change the polarity of this, my we might lose vocals for a moment.
And then we get, by the way, we also get one of the best words that anybody can get to say. So whoever gets to read through line 11 is going to have a lot of fun with it.
Also, Radham, if you have a Google account that doesn't dox you, you can give me the email address associated with that, and I'll add you to the...
Just realradhom@gmail.com.
Yeah, because we're doing a spreadsheet where we're getting like the Italian and all the English translations. We're using certain notes to commentary, and once we get further in, we can start like releasing it without like releasing any of the docs names or the names on the Google Docs. Those will start getting pasted into the description, so anybody can look through all of the translations we're using and everything. The two primary ones we use, though, is Longfellow and Sayers. Sayers because Dorothy is a fucking treasure when it comes to her commentary, and Longfellow because it is the most well-known translation to the majority of people and the most used in university classes.
Also, because he has the most usage of the word lamentations, and it's one of Jack's favorite words.
Yes, because, you know, we always got to go back to the Conan line.
The lamentations of the women.
Yes, but we do get a new, very, very close second favorite word that from an old language that we get in Longfellow and Sayers of Jehoshaphat coming up.
Okay, so I'm a little bit tardy in filling in the database for 10, but you'll see the once you get in, you have an invitation now. Once you get in, you should at least see the Italian, and you're about to see the Longfellow translation. I'm about to paste it in, and then it'll be a little bit before I get the rest of them in. But
your Italian's from the wrong canto.
Okay, is that coming through the correct direction for the folks on Discord
It is.
now?
Yes, it is.
Good.
Italian is the wrong canto. Oh yeah, you're right. It is. Hold on, let me fix that. Need to.
We also had a special guest star of, was that Eris's head that I saw pop on screen for a second?
That is Nick's.
Ah, okay. I can never tell from just the top of the head when they go by quick like that.
Is.
I'm sure when my one of my 4 wake up, they will decide to become ham bones too. So,
Cool.
But as we start getting into Canto 10, we can get into this reading very shortly. This transition is one of the least emphasized as well, and I don't know what implications that means. Because through every other circle, the transition is so highly well described that you can visualize it. In this one, it becomes more of a vibes check as we go by. You're just kind of meant to feel a bit of discomfort, but you get very little visual description comparatively to the other transitions up to this point. And I have no idea what that means to Dante because it's the first time he's done it. Anybody?
I do think it's interesting that the earliest cantos like race through the circles, and I think it's sort of an indication of how, as the sins get more serious, hell gets more populated, or it gets like, I don't know, more densely populated, because actually the area of the circles should be shrinking because it's a spiral going towards the center.
I mean, that's one way to take it, yeah. I always kind of took it as the sins that were closer to Dante's heart were the ones that he focused on more, but, I mean, both interpretations could be correct.
So what circle of hell are we approaching at the moment?
We are about to pass into the 6th.
Even though we're less than a third of the way through the canticle.
Well, it makes sense. Like the deeper you go, the scarier it's supposed to get. So, I mean, from a storytelling point of view, putting more emphasis on the last 3 circles of hell makes sense, especially when everybody knows that Satan or Lucifer is going to be at the very end.
Right. Yeah, the grand finale of the canticle.
Yeah, there's that as well. Good.
Are we doing the left reading or the right reading?
The left. I just put both up on screen because we end up going to Sayers when there is a minor issue with Longfellow being slightly hindering in his language to the point where it's difficult to read or difficult to understand due to the periodicity of his language. Most of the time he's just great for reading, and most university classes use him for that specific thing.
And he's out of copyright, which makes him cheap to buy class sets.
That part I didn't think about, but yeah, that's probably true too.
Well, and how are we doing the reading rotation?
Okay, pretty much we'll go through whoever picks up first. We then will just go clockwise or counterclockwise with whoever wants to go next.
Do me last though, because I'm trying to.
Okay, well,
hastily
then I will start, and then we'll go to Despy, then to Radham, then to you to give you your time.
I've got the Italian and Despy at least.
And we try to stop at natural stopping points, or at points, if there is a stopping point, like as we were reading, and it's like, oh my god, I need to say something here because there's this historical point, just say something and we'll stop there. Like I will, by the look of this, I will be stopping on line 18 of the poem, so just for the natural stopping point within speech. But like some of these go short, some of these go long, because we have commentary that becomes relevant to it as we go. So I will get us started. Now onward goes along the narrow path between the torments and the city wall. My master and I follow at his back. O power supreme that through these imperious circles turnest me, I began. As pleases thee, speak to me, and my longing satisfy. The people who are lying in those tombs, might they be seen, already are uplifted, the covers all, and no one keepeth guard. And he to me, they all have closed up they all have closed up when from Jehoshaphat they shall return, here with the bodies they have left above. Their cemetery have upon this side with Epicurus all his followers, who within the body mortal make the soul. But in the question thou dost put to me, within here shalt thou soon be satisfied, and likewise in the wish thou keepest silent. This is one of the parts that actually helps to stop here as well, because Virgil always seems to know what's in Dante's head, and there is never ever a clear indication as to like if this is actually like a extrasensory perception where he knows, or he knows because he's been through this so many times that he understands the reactions of the general mortal man. And it's an interesting way that he never explains how Virgil knows more than he should, if he's his prescience.
I see this as both of them walking through this area, and Dante just kind of vaguely gesturing at all the strange stuff around him, going like, "What the hell is this?" And Virgil just knowing,
literally,
because
what the hell is this?
It looks strange. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I should say, what in the hell is this?
No, you're right, but it's interesting to me because Virgil always seems to have a level of prescient knowledge that is not explained how it is given to him. We can assume it may be from the intercession of Beatrice and Saint Lucia and Mary, or we can assume it's from the powers of God, or we can assume it's just he's that insightful that he's able to pick this up just from context of Dante's reaction. But he acts as though he knows, as if it is immutable and infallible knowledge, that he knows what's in Dante's mind. And he's done it before this as well.
But hasn't he also already been here for like 2,000 years, like before Dante even gets there, like somewhere around those lines?
Centuries, but yeah, long fucking time.
Well, yeah, and what I'm getting at with this is like he's been there a long time. This isn't his first trip. He's already been through this area of hell before. It's not.
Yeah,
like
who knows how many
yeah
denizens of heaven have asked him for a task before. Like this might not be his first.
Experienced tour guide of hell.
Right.
Well,
How many angels walked up and be like, "Hey, I really don't want to go tromping through the sewer. Can you just go do that for me? You've done it before."
Right.
Dost thou seek the hottest springs?
Yeah, no, I mean that could very well be it, because I mean it's interesting because he does it with Virgil, but he never does it with the other denizens of hell. What I found interesting. And then we can go down and Despy, unless anybody else has anything to add, Despy can pick up, and it looks like you'll either be going to 33 or 36, your choice.
I'll just go to 36.
Okay.
And I, good leader, I but keep concealed from thee my heart, that I may speak the less, nor only now hast thou thereto disposed me. O Tuscan, thou who through the city of fire goest alive, thus speaking modestly, be pleased to stay thy footsteps in this place. Thy mode of speaking makes thee manifest, a native of that noble fatherland, to which perhaps I too molestful was? Yes. Okay.
Molesting the fatherland.
Upon a sudden issued forth this sound from out one of the tombs, wherefore I pressed, fearing, a little nearer to my leader. And unto me he said, "Turn thee, what dost thou? Behold here Farinata, who has risen from the waist upwards, wholly shalt thou see him." I had already fixed mine eyes on his, and he uprose erect with breast in front.
Oh my.
E'en as if hell he had in great despite.
Yeah, and it could be Farinata, it can be Farinata. It depends on which dialect of Italian you're pronouncing the name in. So right, either works.
I'll just bastardize it entirely and just go, it's Farinata.
Well, you're definitely going back to your rural roots with that, my country friend.
Yeah. That'll do it.
Yeah.
Farinata, mate.
Oh, now we're getting Outback. Yeah, we're getting a little bit of Adelaide in there.
I fucking love Radelaide.
Wait, is that actually what it's nicknamed, or did you just add your name to it?
It's one of its nicknames.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I honestly know it from pictures. That's it.
Adelaide Fringe is great. Absolutely worth going to. Second largest fringe festival on the planet.
Well, I mean, you guys have the space for it. I had a friend who lived in Adelaide years ago, and that's how I know it, is from like little videos and pictures that they'd send me. And it's like it's gorgeous, but there's nothing around it for like miles. Like you just see horizon for days.
So that like vast open parkland around the city center so the guy who designed Adelaide was a German, and he designed it with the CBD surrounded by vast open parkland so that Adelaide would be easily defensible by cannon during a siege.
If you're sieging Adelaide, there's already a problem. You're in the middle of the country already. I mean, it's interesting history because I didn't know that. That's wild to think about. But it's like you got bigger problems if Adelaide is under siege.
So this was like, when the states were like, somewhat separate entities. So who knows what the fuck Victoria or New South Wales might have done.
I mean, fair enough, but still, it's interesting to think about.
From Melbourne, fuck.
Yeah, I would think that the big ass desert between the two of you guys would do most of the defending for you, but You know, the one that they say if you
derailed us.
No, you're fine. It's that part of that part of Australia that when you go on to travel into the country, they say bring extra gas cans with you because if you run out of gas out here, you're gonna die.
That's north of Adelaide and a fair while west of Sydney.
Oh, okay. So, but yeah, it's just wild. That being said, going back to the canto before we derail too much, although we do derail often. As we go back into like the names listed, Farinata here can technically be listed as two different things. It can be a person, obviously, but it also can potentially be referencing a particular small abbey that is outside the city of Florence, which is the Abbey of Farinata. So it is due to the proximity of the city of, you know, his hometown, so to speak. It could be referencing either, or due to his ambiguous language, it could be referencing both. Rich, we got your attention back from the spreadsheet?
No. I missed that last bit.
Talking about Farinata being potentially either the abbey north of Florence or the particular nobleman.
Oh, right, yeah, because it was not uncommon back then for people to be named for their, you know, like if you were the Count of something, you would be known by that name instead of whatever your personal name was.
Well, there was a nobleman with this name, and then there is an abbey. It wasn't a serfdom that would give a title in that way, like a county or a barondom. It was a surname or the name that was given to a particular abbey. And that's why I say with Dante, he could be referring to the person, the place, or both.
Yeah.
I think this artist has decided to render the person.
Also true.
Cloth drapering and shadowing, concealing the crotch there. Thank you. Very Twitch considerate.
Well, I mean, especially when we talk about that other line in there, I'm glad that the crotch area is covered. Get us on OnlyFans real quick. Only Dante. Now, that being said, as we are getting into this, we are now going to be getting into the more emotional side of this. And this is where my ass will constantly draw us back. This is where we start to see Dante's humanism start to surface again, despite how he's been trying to push it aside and start to follow more the example of Virgil up to this point and be more judgmental of those damned souls that are passing him, and he starts to mimic a little bit more of Virgil's mannerisms. In this part, we then start to see his humanism start to come back out, where the sympathy kicks back in, where because he knew some of these people in real life as opposed to general figures of his time period that he would know of, he actually lists two people in this canto that he knew in reality, and putting them here, in my opinion, has great personal significance to him. But he in doing so, like, this is more visceral of an emotional reaction than we have seen from him, contrary to him like following Virgil's example. And if you would like to move the screen for us now. God, we're actually going much quicker than we normally do. Normally, by now, we're still getting into our warm-up. We didn't have as many notes this week.
Well, we could spend a little bit of time just catching Radham up on like exactly where we are topographically, and some of the major events that we're probably going to be referring to, like that's already happened.
Sweet.
Yeah, actually, I would let you guys get to that while I get visuals up.
We could also get his ideas on the difference between temperance and prudence and which one's more important.
Well, we could spend a lot of time on at that.
I would need to look up definitions on that. I was not raised in any Christian denomination. I was raised by a pair of agnostics, and I wound up an atheist.
Oh, right. So you didn't even have like the traumatic religious childhood that a lot of atheists have.
Nope.
So yeah.
I was
So
very lucky in that regard. I grew up around a bunch of hippie shit that I had to get over, but
well, some of the hippie shit, like I don't know, like for instance, the acceptance of a lot of sort of like pagan traditions and stuff can come in useful here because there's a lot of Greek and Roman mythology wrapped up in here,
yeah.
and some commentary on Islam as well. So it's not just like a Christian background that would be useful for interpretation. In fact, what we're doing now is one of the things that we had a discussion on is about the city of Dis, because Dis is short for Dis Pater, and that was a nickname for Hades at one point.
Mhm.
And so the idea of the city of Dis being Hades is one thing, but then of course the Roman name being Pluto, but there's another character in the previous canto prior to going to Dis, who is named Plutus, I think, or something like along those lines.
Yeah,
Because there is another god who's the god of wealth. And the question is, did he mean to conflate those as being the same person? Because he does give them very similar, well, I suppose they have a lot of similar aspects. Or is he trying to conflate them, or are those distinct characters, which is the city of Dis being associated with Hades, and then Plutus or Pluto, depending on I forget which one the Italian uses,
Plutus.
being
so
essentially associated with greed.
The Italian name, in the Italian, the name used is Pluto, but because of the weird way that the translations worked out, that typically refers to the god Plutus, whereas to refer to the god that we know as Pluto in the Italian, you would use Pluton as the proper name there.
Well,
So
especially in
that's
14th century Italian, it is changed over time as well, which is why when we get into more modern translations, there are certain things where if these people are unaware of the historical significance of the particular accent mark placements and things like this, like it would actually change how it would be pronounced, etc., and therefore will lead to misunderstandings. Like it's one of the problems, like when we are translating things that people fail to take into account is periodicity of language is since our linguistics guy is here, correct me if I'm wrong, 36 years.
Honestly, sometimes it can be even shorter than that. Oftentimes I'd say it's around there.
Well, yeah, we're talking like the general average, like, because it's going to be different based on a lot of variables. This is where we say, like, for contextual, like textbook purposes,
like I would say, around 40 years. In a lot of cases that can be a bit short, just because it heavily depends on the societal norms, and how, like,
yeah, if you've got things being taught in a very rigid way, that
and it's worth noting that that prior to the late 19th century, compulsory education wasn't really a thing. So language was largely about how society did things. Now with language being more rigidly structured and taught, I would say that we actually end up with a longer periodicity of language, because, like, you could still go back to the 40s and pretty much
more or less understand.
Exactly. Yeah, there would be very little difficulty in understanding. Slang terms would definitely be different, but the ways in which we use language,
including including accent marks, they have changed, because so much so that we and that's what I'm talking about. So it's like these little minute changes that do change in this shorter time period is where the confusion comes in, because we are so familiar with the way the words are used, and the word definitions do not change rapidly, but occasionally our sentence structure will, which can then lead to misimplication.
That's fair. Yeah, if you were to be transported back to the 1940s today, you wouldn't have trouble understanding them, but they would look at you like you're talking fucking weird. So that's fair.
And I would have trouble passing a 1940s English class because there's going to be certain rules that they follow that I do not. For example,
I took 4 years of Attic Greek, and when I was in Greece, I tried to say things, and nobody could understand a thing I was saying.
Yeah,
my Latin's
You should
okay.
have learned basement Greek instead.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, my Latin was
That's
good
called-
enough to get by
It's
in
called
church.
Koine. Basement Greek is Koine. The Bible was written in the simplest Greek possible.
Yeah, that's also true. But my Latin's okay, so I could get by in church. But yeah, if I tried to get by using my Latin and Latin-based languages like Italian or French, I'm sure I would be laughed at like very badly by everybody listening.
It'd be like trying to speak Old English.
Yeah.
To order your coffee.
Now, this image is not great, but it is from a vellum that I have on screen now. Where we would be is actually passing through this area here, past the city of Dis. It is one of these that's not, this one isn't drawn very well, but that's because this was hand painted onto calfskin.
Amazing.
Anyway, the topographical thing to know is that when you go through the only way to get from Circle 5 to Circle 6 is to go through the city of Dis. And that city has gates that are locked. And so an angel had to come down and basically order those gates unlocked. So they were basically
unbarred, but yeah.
Virgil asked for the manager, and the problem was solved.
Yeah.
So the only
Virgil
way is to
cared
walk
the
the
fuck
diss
out of
track.
this.
What was that, Red Hot?
Right.
The only way is to walk the diss track.
That's good.
I mean, yeah, like the way it is described in certain commentaries, because of Dis is a circle of cities within circles. We are essentially walking, like if we were to put this into fantasy terms for your audience, if you're looking at Minas Tirith, we're walking the outer circle of the lowest tier around the city. So we're not going through the city, but we're inside the city walls. Is the way it is described, at the best way it's described, I should say.
And when they leave Dis, is that they take a left, and so they're walking in a spiral. So they're always turning to the right, turning to the right, turning to the right. That's what they're constantly doing. Or it's the other way around. I can't remember. But when they leave the city of Dis, for the only time in the poem, they turn to the left. Or they turn the other way, whichever way the other way is. And we weren't sure if that was because the circles in the city were a different direction. Like, instead of following the circle of hell, which you normally do, at this point, it's almost like an epicycle, where you have a circle within a circle. So now you can go a different direction in order to get out. But then he's going to keep going to the right.
The way I viewed it, and because you are right, I did kind of view it the same way as this was odd. But the way I viewed it is they got to the wall.
Epicycles are very relevant to the way Dante sees the universe.
No, agreed. But the way I viewed it was also the way he wrote it was essentially the labyrinth trick. You're walking through a place, you have no idea where you're going, put your hand on the right wall and keep going. Sometimes that means you're going to have to make the left to keep with the wall on your right, so to speak. So it was basically came to an obstruction, went around the obstruction, then kept going the way he was going.
Right.
Like, that's the way I pictured it in my head when I read through this years ago. Because, funnily enough, a few weeks before this in class, I had read fucking about the labyrinth.
Right.
So, that could just be my education kicking in because of my own personal history, like why I got that visual, but that's always how I took it.
Sure. Okay, I've got 3 translations in the database now. Don't have any notes yet, but I'll get there.
we can do those after. But on that note, we do get our first time appear of Real Radham, who is a friend of the channel from Australia, a streamer who I enjoy watching. He covers a lot of fun stuff, who's going to get his first time reading. He gets to have one of the fun sections. If you would like, you could take us all the way to line 57. Or you could stop at 51 for the where the spoken line is, because that might have a point if you while you're reading that draws your attention.
And with courageous hand and prompt, my leader thrust me between the sepulchres towards him, exclaiming, "Let thy words explicit be." As soon as I was at the foot of his tomb, somewhat he eyed me, and, as if disdainful, then asked of me, "Who were thine ancestors?" I, who desirous of obeying was, concealed it not, but all revealed to him, whereat he raised his brows a little upward. Then said he, "Fiercely adverse have thy been to me, and to my fathers and my party, so that 2 several times I scattered them. If they were banished, they returned on all sides," sorry, wrong voice. "If they were banished, they returned on all sides," I answered him. "But first time and the second, yours have not acquired the art, or acquired that art aright."
Yeah, and that's why I was going to stop there, because when we talk about the first time or the second, this is actually going into like the historical point, because one of the person he is speaking to is actually a Ghibelline leader, and that is who the who Dante fought on the side of during the conflict of Capaldino. So
this might be another time to point out something, right? I don't know, Radham, are you familiar with the difference between the Guelphs and the Ghibellines?
Nope.
Okay, so there's been a lot of fighting in Italy at this point, and especially like around the area of the Vatican and north of there, so in Florence and places like that. And the parties were basically 2. There were those who supported the Vatican, which would be the Guelphs, and then the Ghibellines would be the ones that supported sort of monarchical powers that were, I don't want to say secular, but that were not associated with the Vatican. And that was kind of a civil war that was happening. And then eventually the Guelphs won out and pushed out the Ghibellines. But then within the Guelphs, there developed a difference between 2 factions that called themselves the Blacks and the Whites. And I forget which one was which. There was a moderate party that essentially like believed in sort of religious toleration and almost secularism.
White Guelphs, the virtuous Guelphs. That's why they chose the color they did. Yeah.
So that's the party that Dante's family was in, and then there were the sort of more radical pro-Vatican forces that wanted the Pope to pretty much control everything or whatever. So even though
the argument I get from certain commentaries is it was the argument of the banks versus the church more than the other, but other than that, everything else you said is accurate.
Well, I mean that's certainly the economic aspect of the battle that was going on there. They still have that fight today over the Vatican Bank.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying that it wasn't just the aristocracy and the kings versus the papacy. It was the bank versus the papacy, at least from like multiple of the commentaries at this point.
Wait, so you're saying the banks were in the Ghibellines territory or in the Black Guelphs territory?
Black Guelphs.
Okay, right. Okay, so yeah, right. So a lot of that financial power is just another aspect of power. Shouldn't be centralized all just under the Pope, but that there should be other people that control these things too. This sort of like separation of powers almost that you get in later society. In fact, Dante himself argues in De Monarchia, he argues for secularism. And I'm not aware of anyone earlier than Dante making that argument.
There's a few, but not many in Europe. Most of them are in North Africa at this point. But
so we're always looking for like indications of what sort of the Renaissance that will come centuries later, that he's sort of anticipating that in terms of what he's calling for Italy.
Yeah, because remember the particular tutors that he is getting are coming from the Moorish world and the Arab world. he ends up getting a lot of these secularized and humanized ideas that are being suppressed by the papacy at this point from North Africa and from his tutors from the Middle East. So like he is actually being given, for what 14th century Italy would be concerned, forbidden knowledge, and which is helping him shape these more humanistic values.
Yeah. It's what made me fall in love with Dante back in the day. I was like, wait, in the 1300s, somebody was arguing for secularism? Like, this is amazing.
And you're about to say something, Radham? I heard your dulcet tones kicking in.
I just said splendid.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I'm because this is your first week here. I'm the guy that points out Dante's humanism constantly. In fact, if I were to scroll up and show you my commentary off to the side, it's one of the things I bring up in this section. Because Dante is not the first, but he is the most well-known humanist from prior to the 16th century.
Although I would say Saint Bernard of Clairvaux is certainly one.
He's technically earlier. Yeah, he's technically earlier. We also have a few people from Middle East, North Africa, Far East, etc. Like this is not a unique concept, but it is one of the most well-known coming out of Europe because of Dante's proliferation of the Divine Comedy.
When my conservative Catholic friends complain about humanism, I like to point out that that a lot of the Catholic saints were themselves humanists, but they weren't secular humanists necessarily. In all cases, they were what we would call Catholic humanists, but they were humanists.
Well, theological humanism and secular humanism are not at odds with one another. It is the theological versus the societal that become at odds. Humanism is always humanism, regardless of who's using it.
Right.
It makes it real easy to get along with the theological humanists like myself and secular humanists like famous people like Dillahunty and all them who do all that, because of the fact our goal is to make life better for humans. Makes it pretty easy to align goals. And by the way, thank you for putting us all to shame, Radham, because that is a better reading in your first showing than we have done in 10 weeks now.
We're going to kidnap you and have you do all of the readings.
Yeah, literally the second
I will often not be available, but I'm happy to come along from time to time.
Yeah, I literally, when I said that you were coming to Rich, he was like, "Oh, good, we can get him to read the whole thing."
Well, I'm happy to do a fair bit of reading.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't ask that of you, first of all, because I wouldn't want to impose. Second of all, because it also is supposed to be like where you can listen and maybe think of things. Because when you're reading, sometimes it's hard to bring out the insights. Sometimes when you're listening to it, those insights click that don't do it when you're doing it yourself. So it helps all of us, because there's been stuff that I was like, oh, wait, the way you read that was read different than the way I read it in my head, and now it gives me this implication, so on.
There's someone who mentioned earlier that the sore throat or a bit of a bung voice at the moment. I am happy to pick up more in the reading roster. I do not have a problem with that problem.
Yeah, that is our good friend Ancomp, who has been helping us with our Italian translations and some of the more
with the amazing anarchist Star Trek profile picture there.
Yep, that's me.
Yeah, he helps us with our Italian translations, and he ends up bringing in a more finited historical context than the rest of us, just because he has a little bit of a slightly different historical knowledge base than the rest of us, so he ends up bringing in a lot of context with that stuff as well. And then we got our other theater guy here, who is a language teacher, who then gets us into grammar and syntax and helps us break apart that crap.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie. I've been doing a lot of early church stuff when it comes to when we've been talking about this, just because I was brought up in a traditional Catholic home.
I mean, I have eSword open right now. It just doesn't show up on OBS so that you guys can see it. I have scriptures open right now that are referencing certain parts of this. So yeah, and I am the pagan Reformed Catholic. So when for your audience, Reformed Catholic as George Carlin would describe it. Because I was raised Catholic and realized it was a bunch of bullshit, and I come at this more from the pagan occult side of it, but with a heavy Christian theological background because of how I was educated in it as a child. So we end up getting a lot of different references, and you coming from an agnostic family, we then get another set of angles. This is why the value of this, because like as we go through these apparatus, or as I'm making this apparatus, we are bringing commentaries together that are generally not even taught at university level classes into one place. So we're bringing up stuff from Sayers, from Longfellow, from Ciardi, from Musa, so on and so forth, because as we do so, like as a university kid watches this, hopefully, they will then be able to parse apart what their professor might want from them or expect from them, etc. It's why I chose the particular translations that I did, because it is the most used across university syllabi within the English-speaking world. Like it's one of the advantages of online is I'm able to do that kind of like data amalgamation to create this. Hey, I'm going to use the one that most kids are going to find when they get to uni. Oh, hold on, somebody just messaged me. Oh, what white noise am I getting? What the hell? Okay, I'll fix that in a second. Rich, you're up. Let me mute my mic here for your reading.
What line we're on?
We are going to be starting on line 52.
Okay. Then there uprose upon the sight uncovered, down to the chin, a shadow at his side. I think that he had risen on his knees. Round me he gazed as if solicitude. He had to see if someone else were with me. But after his suspicion was all spent, weeping, he said to me, "If though this blind prison thou goest by our loftiness of genius, where is my son, and why is he not with thee?" And I to him, "I have not of myself. He who is waiting yonder leads me here, whom in disdain perhaps your Guido had. His language and the mode of punishment already unto me had read his name. On that account my answer was so full." Upstarting suddenly he cried out, "How saidst thou he had? Is he not still alive? Does not the sweet light strike upon his eyes?" When he became aware of some delay, which I before my answer made, supine he fell again, and forth appeared no more. But the other magnanimous, at whose desire I had remained, did not his aspect change, neither his cheek he moved, nor bent his side. Should I stop there?
Yeah. Sorry. I was trying to work on my audio issue. Apparently, it is just to you guys in Discord, so I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I moved my mic to hopefully deal with it, but when I checked my stream, OBS is killing it with its noise suppression filter, but for some reason Discord is not catching that noise suppression, so I don't know what's going on with that. So I do apologize for that white noise. That being said,
it seems to be dealt with.
All right. Gotta love trying to do tech support on the fly. Nor bent aside. Okay, there we go. I can go back up to this. Okay, so like as we were going through this section, we get the God damn it. We get more of like the visualizations of like the people that they're coming to deal with, etc. The visualizations here of rising and falling again, rising and falling again. It's almost Sisyphean in my eyes, to the point where like it's meant to show like the futility of this effort. Because he does this in a few other sections of the cantos as well, where he will show repetition as a sign of futility. And it feels like he's doing so again with this.
Well, in this instance, isn't it the the man who rose from the grave, who has then fallen again.
It's always it's always that way. It's always the damn soul that rise and fall, and that's that futility I'm talking about. Because Virgil is also dead. It's when they got onto the boat with Charon, it was not until Dante put his feet within the boat that the boat had weight and sank within the water of the river Styx. Virgil is also an immaterial being, much like these damn souls. So Virgil is the one soul that we see in hell that does not have the same level of like torment as the rest of them. And this is, at least to our understanding at this point, due to the intercession of Beatrice through Saint Lucia and Mother Mary, coming down to send Virgil to guide Dante through hell to paradise. So like Dante is the only material substance here. Everything else is futility and woe and damage and punishment, except for him and Virgil is only saved from that, at least according to the text up to this point, due to that intercession given from above. Because the rest of the time he spends his time in the Citadel of Light, where even though it is the best place in hell, it's still hell and everybody's still getting the shit kicked out of them. Fair, quick assessment, Rich?
Yeah, that's another thing we might clue in Radham on, is towards the beginning of the poem. This is something that Sensei points out, like when we were first reading it, is that there's a lot of intercessions going on at the very beginning, right? So it starts with Mary, who then goes to Saint Lucia, who then goes to Beatrice. Beatrice is a childhood love of Dante. He's obsessed with her, and but it seems like each one has a connection to the other in the chain, and so that's what makes it relevant. That's what makes intercessions powerful in Catholic mythology. And so this stepping of Mary to Saint Lucy, essentially, to Beatrice, to Virgil. Virgil's the last person in the chain. The request makes it down the chain. Hey, you've got to save Dante and give him this tour of hell or whatever, so that he'll correct his course in life. That's what's happening. And so the reason Virgil is guiding him is because he's the last person on that chain. But eventually, Virgil will find somebody else to continue it, because there will be a point at which he can no longer ascend, because he's a denizen of hell and can't enter heaven.
Yes.
But
and then we get our second guide for a very short time, and then we get our final guide, who Rich is about to bring up. The second guide is usually overlooked because it's only for a very short time that they're there.
Yeah. His final guide is going to be Beatrice herself.
Yeah, and Beatrice, the childhood love, because you were not here for it, we went over this really heavily during Cantos 1 and 2. Beatrice is almost like deified in his mind. She is perfection itself on earth with the way he has described her. She could do no wrong. Now, part of this...
I think they met at like 12 or 14, something like that.
11 and separated at 12, but yes.
Yeah, that's right. And then she died in her 20s. And so he has this idea of Beatrice in his head. The real Dante has this idea of Beatrice in his head that like she could do no wrong, because he didn't know her in the intervening years. And then when she finally died, it was very, very young. And so she, in his imagination, can be anybody he wants her to be. And so she is this like heavenly creature who resides in Paradiso and wants to save Dante.
Well, yeah, and there's some historians who think, and they don't have true contextual reference for this beyond certain implications in Dante's writings. They believe, due to his love of this girl, like when they were in real life, he was warned off of her that she's too pure for you. You're too unclean for this pure of a girl, and he was pushed away from pursuing her.
Sinful, wretched thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, where he was pushed away from pursuing her because ages 12 and 13 is when most people were betrothed in the 14th century. But that's historians bringing in secondary context. I do not know how much that applies to Dante in reality.
You do get a sense of unrequited love here, though. Or
that's also not just Europe, though. I mean, the East also had a tradition of that as well.
Well, yeah, but 14th century specifically is what I was pointing to. Of it wasn't just the church that did this, but in this time period, due to adulthood being perceived at roughly 15, betrothal happened in what was considered their adolescence, even though they didn't have a word for it, which was about 12 to 13 for women when they are first blooded, and for men when they get their first hunting kill. This is just historical, anthropological shit for anybody in the audience. I'm an uber nerd who looks at shit from like every discipline you can imagine because I don't sleep. So like I'll go ahead, Despy.
I always thought it was a point in which people could be get confirmed. That was the point that they could be betrothed.
That is the harmonization for the inculcation that we later did, but we were actually essentially just perpetuating a practice that had been in ancient Mesopotamia, ancient Judaism, before Judaism, like the Judaic mystics, Jewish mystics before Judaism formed, etc. And this all comes from the biology of humans, of when could they be basically traded off for mating. And this is why I bring in the anthropological side, because historians like to sugarcoat this because they don't like talking about it in this kind of like clinical aspect, but that's the reality of it.
Well, look, I'm glad we have changed.
Oh, so much so. I'm just scared shitless we're going back this way. But no politics. Let's get back to Dante and his politics.
Yes. Dante's Divine Comedy, famously apolitical.
Well, yes, it's not apolitical, but at least it's not our politics we're talking about.
No, it is apolitical. Well, no, it is. It is. It's a political piece.
Yeah. Oh, God, I need to get a soundboard for you sometimes, Despy. Either that or I need to get one of those little setups like we had back in the 70s for when fucking sideshows did the jokes.
Is get a Foley rig.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, a Foley sound is like if you're doing a radio play. It's so a Foley cabinet is you'll have like things for making footsteps on gravel. Different like hinges on different doors will be audibly tuned to like produce different effects. You can get so any bit of noise that you add to something is Foley sound.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that name
as well.
Yeah, I didn't know that name. I just always called it sound effects. Like I used to have the big saw to do the rain sound and all that crap. Yeah, because we did that for storytelling.
Foley is heavily employed in a lot of like cartoons. So all of the sound effects that you would hear that aren't speech are Foley.
Yeah, I just didn't know the term. It's cool to learn.
A lot of cinema as well. Your standard Foley sound for a breaking bone is a stick of celery on a pillow being punched, and the standard sound for a snapping neck is a watermelon on a wooden chopping board being chopped through with a cleaver.
Yeah. Damn my imagination, because I could literally just do that in my head. 20 years as a chef, I've cut up a lot of fucking watermelons. It's like, yeah, that's the fucking sound.
Combination of the wet squelch and the that's the film's Foley sound for a snapping neck.
Okay, more you know.
I'm sure that people have used other things to produce that, but that's the standard traditional one.
Yeah, like honestly, when I always thought about it, what I thought they were doing was taking a fully uncut raw, like big thick carrot and basically shearing it But this is the same basic concept. We're shearing the rind, which is giving that same kind of concept. Interesting. Because I knew the celery on a pillow, so I honestly thought neck would be carrot, just because it has like a bit more crunch than celery.
Fair.
So I'm putting the notes in, and Musa points out that it's interesting. I think that he points out that it's interesting that the damned can see the future because they're always prophesying, but they cannot see the present, which is why he asked, like, does my son still live? They can see the future, but not the present.
Well, but do they see the future, or are they told the future? Because we are only given a certain passage through hell, and they could be essentially like, one of the torments could be they are tormented with the better future they will never get to see. Like, essentially,
maybe they're selectively shown aspects of the future. I don't know.
Yeah, because this comes from my understanding of U.S. military practices, which are fucking horrid. But one of the psychological fucking torture practices we used on detainees was showing them fake newspapers of future events involving their kids and shit, where we'd like use computer software to age progress them, showing them like getting out of college and stuff like this to fuck with their head, to think that they'd been there too long.
Well, although in this case, the prophecies always end up being true, right? Because this is being published long after the events have occurred, but the fictional Dante is going through this years ago. And so he's able to see the future because the writer, is living in the future. And all of these prophecies that the damned give are things that have happened in the intervening years. So they are seeing the true future.
No, and you are right on that. What was that, Hank? I'm sorry, you're quiet.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I didn't want to overtalk you, my bad.
Yeah. So something I noticed on line 63.
Let me go back up real quick.
All three translations that we have use the word, like, they don't translate the word Guido, but Guido is literally guide.
Well, but no, it's not just that. Guido in this capacity is also a particular person. Like we'd have to pull up the commentaries for it, and I'd have to go find it right now because I think it's Chiardi's. But he's referencing a person he knew in real life, and that's why like all the translators keep it that word.
I see.
At least that's what I read in the commentaries. Is that accurate? I don't know, because I can't translate 14th century Italian.
That doesn't mean the implication isn't there.
Yeah, but Guido could have been his job in life as well.
I've got a note here in my book copy. Guido, the son of Cavalcante Cavalcanti.
Cavalcante, yeah.
He whom I call my first of friends, says Dante in his Vita Nuova, where the commencement of their friendship is related.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, like, at least because I can't do the Italian, I just took the commentators thing, and we got another one from this, I'm guessing based on his name, Catholic commentator. So the consensus seems to be the reason that they do not translate it into guide or even capitalized as to like a title guide in English is because it is a double entendre for an actual person as well. If that helps you, Adcom.
Yeah, it does. I didn't realize there was a person.
I think it's interesting that his name is Cavalcante de Cavalcanti. So I guess Cavalcanti of the Cavalcantis.
What does that translate to? Because I don't know that word from Italian, and it doesn't have a true correlative in base Latin.
That would be an Ancon question.
Mm-hmm.
It's his name. It is his family name.
Yeah, I just can't take
it. Like when people
Latin.
ask you,
Johnson of the Johnsons.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Of the East Side Johnsons or something,
So this is fun. As an adjective, the word Cavalcante literally means ridden.
Rider of the riders, then is that what this would be?
No, it's literally meant to be the past participle. So, like one who has been ridden would be more.
So could this be a subtle dig at the person, or a compliment? I don't know how to take this one.
Well, I mean, Cavalcante is just a name, so I'm not entirely sure why their parents would have named them that way. It seems a little odd to me, but
I won't say my real name, but my last name, there's a little suffix after it that's a Roman numeral, Ancom. Don't ask why people name their kid shit.
Fair enough. As a noun, the word Cavalcante refers to a rider, or in some obsolete senses, like a messenger boy or a letter carrier. So that's probably the more likely. Like, if we're going as a personal name.
Well, yeah, but with the day instead of datos, this would be a reference to like an actual like heretical or heritable job, correct?
I would imagine so. Yeah, if you are, if we're thinking in 14th century and you're a messenger, then most
couriers. If we were to translate it into the way we modernly think about this.
Yeah, courier.
So
that would make sense.
Might Cavalcanti be like rider, son of rider, or courier, son of courier?
Yeah, well, or courier of couriers, meaning like the best of the best.
Cavalcanti, the plural would be the plural. So
the father of Guido is Cavalcante Cavalcanti.
Yeah, so Cavalcanti would be the plural form. So Cavalcante de Cavalcanti would be rider of riders. So it could
totally figured this out.
It could be like a family.
I don't like the joy on your face, Despy. Are we about to get demonetized?
No. No. This guy is the Pony Express. He's a rider that sends messages.
Well, yeah.
Pony Express.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially what I was going for with courier of couriers, because I was bringing a little bit of historical context of there were 3 primary couriers of the papacy, one in Florence, one in Roma, and one in Nepal, Napoli. So this is these 3 primary couriers would have went out to
a little far away.
Yeah, I misspoke. Napoli. And these 3 primary couriers went to 3 primary locations. The one in Florence would have went out into wider Europe. The one in Roma would have handled the greater body of Italy. The one in Napoli would have handled North Africa and Near East. So like this could very much be a insinuation of profession as well, since we know one of these things was in his hometown. But that's historical knowledge outside of the poem. For those of you watching, I do apologize. We're all fucking nerds.
I just take rider of riders to mean this is your dom's dom.
Well, I mean, we did have to worry about covering up something being erect earlier in the canto, so you might be right. And demonetized. No. Like, honestly, I don't care, because it's like I'm not a monetized channel, but this is just more just funny, because it's the other thing is we know that Dante uses innuendo heavily. You also could be right without even meaning to be Rad Hub, because he references sex way too fucking often in so many ways, because he uses innuendos that for his time period would be known, because they would have been like from literature he would have been taught from as a child. So it's like when he uses them, he can't not know that that's a dick joke. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's one of those things. You know, like as anybody who's over the age of, what would you say, 35, Despy, Johnson of Johnson's is instantly going to make sense to them as a double entendre. Same kind of concept.
Okay. something that I didn't pick up on when you all were explaining it, because well, I'm currently just a little frazzled.
You're good.
Is that Cavalcante de Cavalcanti is the father of Guido Cavalcanti, which is who they're referring to in that sentence. So now everything has pieced itself together in my head.
And that's why I say I think it's a heritable job, and especially in this time period. Like, I mean, we jokingly say, Joe Smith and stuff like that nowadays, but like the way that people got their names Smith, goldsmith, blacksmith, etc., was because of their heritable job. This was a naming convention up until about the 17th century in most of Europe. Because surnames, sometimes you wanted a new one because your dad was a dick. So you were your job. You were no longer, Johnson, son of, Mike. You're now Johnson the blacksmith. And so on. So, it's just an interesting thing to bring into this because...
if you go old, if you're Johnson, you're son of John.
Also true. Yeah, but that dude, that dude's just a big forgery in the Bible. We don't need to worry about him.
The traditional assigning of surnames varies between cultures because, like Radham says, in a lot of cases it was literally just patronymic. But in other cases it was based on your not even necessarily your job, but like your position within the community, because there was a lot of there was like a shit ton of detailed hierarchy in medieval society. So like a you had the lord who was above everyone, and then you had various tiers of serfs and peasants. So if you were a religious leader, for instance, you would be above the banker, who was above the blacksmith, who was above the farmer, and so on and so forth. And so your
depending on the time period, that church person could be above the nobleman.
Yes. Well, that was actually one of the contentions between the Guelphs and Ghibellines, is who got to appoint the various religious leaders.
Yeah.
So this idea of a surname being a job, like it probably started out that way, but then like you would have kept that position because of where your family came from, even if you went to a different thing. So Guido Cavalcanti, for instance, was a poet, but likely his father would have been someone who was a career messenger of some sort.
Or maybe not even his father, his father's father's father, and since then they're all noblemen, and they have people to do that for them now. Exactly, it's exactly that.
Now they run a logistics company.
That lineage and that name means something more than just.
Well, and what I was going to bring up was Ingrid Rolfsdottir, with bringing up the Norse style, where son or daughter, you took the name of your parentage and then just added what you were to them, and that was your surname. So yeah, that's that has continued the longest, and I think that comes from the aspect of, we know the oldest known religious practices among the human species, multiple human species, is ancestor worship. It would only make sense that one of the ways that we would do that is through lexical, like, naming practices.
Yeah, so Cavalcante de Cavalcanti was also a merchant banker who was basically a usurer during the Crusades. So yeah, it was he was extremely wealthy.
And Eucharist, if you're watching, I'm sorry, Michael Knowles is wrong. The Crusades were not justified. One of our other guests, the hosts that come on here, is Eucharist, and he had to skip this week because last night he was seeing Michael Knowles do a talk on Dante. So okay. I'm gonna give him shit for not being here for Knowles.
That's gotta be a surreal experience.
Yeah, But I'm still gonna give him shit for it because it's
We're
Michael
gonna have to
Knowles.
review that one next week.
We could do that on a day that's not Saturday. I am more than willing to stream another day to do that, but I am not giving up our reading to cover Michael fucking Knowles. Science-denying lunatic that he is. He's entertaining, but he's out of his fucking mind.
He's an anti-empiricist.
Yeah, that's why I just say science-denying twit kind of covers it. Also true. Anti-empiricist, pro-imperialist. That's just a fucking wild combination.
If he thought the Crusades were justified, yeah, this man loves empire.
Crusades, colonization, all justified according to Michael Knowles.
I mean, this is just a might makes right kind of person. Like,
but this is the irony of that, because if you're for that, then you are for the conditions that led up to Europe having a more diverse population today, right? Because it's because Europeans conquered other countries in the world that they opened up the gates for those client nations to then have the right to enter the mother nation. Right?
Going all the way back to Rome, the very first Holy Roman Empire.
That's why North Africans are in France, because of the colonization of Algeria and other plations.
That's why awfully like evidence and empiricism there.
Yeah, it is, but but when you're dealing with a ideologue, they don't generally see that in their own ideologies.
No,
so if he thinks it's good to go to other places, he's saying it's good that we colonized all these other places, then he must also be implying that it's good for all of those people.
I would love to watch you ask him that question. I would love to watch you ask him that question, because I want to see the color drain from his face as he tries to come up with an answer on the fly.
He's justifying immigration, is what he's doing.
I think I can give a fairly consistent rebuttal to that, which is just that if he believes it is right for the superior to invade and control the inferior, then it would make sense also for him to believe that the inferior should not be able to pollute the superior by traveling to their country of origin.
I'm not saying you're wrong on what he may be thinking, but I still think the color would drain from his face if somebody like Rich, with all of his poise and paucity, were to fucking come up and ask him that question in person.
Well, it reminds me of the old saying that the Romans conquered the Greeks, right? But then Greek culture spread throughout the Roman Empire, and so who conquered who?
The reality is the Romans still conquered the Greeks, but the Romans conquered the Greeks because their culture was actually already pushing towards the Greeks due to the influence of the Greeks creeping in on the eastern front of their empire. Like there is like multiple layers to this in a cultural anthropological sense I could bring in, but we will divert for the next 4 hours and not get done with Canto 10.
Rome won the land and Greece won the culture war.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, for some reason,
look,
which is not a dynamic that Knowles would like pointed out.
But I'm just going to go with the incorrect but statistically most probable answer.
Obama did it.
The Mongols. Who invaded who? The Mongols? I'm probably right. Not in this instance, but...
Well, this actually reminds me of an even earlier question that kind of mirrors this, which is not between two groups of people, but in fact, humans domesticated wheat, but from a certain perspective, wheat domesticated humans.
Okay, that one we'll have to go over another time, because I know of that argumentation for Canis lupus. I do not know of that argumentation for wheat. But you may be right. I just don't know of that argumentation, so I want to go over that.
Maybe. Wheat, maybe. Rye, definitely.
Well, actually, if we go by the oldest known cultivation sites that we now have, rather than what is in most history books, we now know that the oldest known agriculture comes from an area around a place called Karahan Tepe, which is in Turkey, and it is over 6,000 years older than Sumer. It is, and what they grew was a weird grass type, so more like a corn, that they would grind into a meal and make like pancakes out of with fern fiddle. as like chopped up in it. And the reason that we know this is because of Otzi the Iceman. And you guys can look into that on your own time. OTZI, he's named for the location. I'm talking for audience. OTZI is he's named for the location he was found. He is an Iceman who was mummified over 6,000 years ago, and he actually has a more ancient diet than what most people do, because he comes from a time period known as the Chalcolithic, the Copper Age, time period that's very little talked about. And before we'd go too far off onto that tangent, that will give you some reading for later, chat.
Yeah, the grain that was found in his stomach was einkorn.
Einkorn, that's the name of it. Yeah.
But that is still a genus related to wheat. So the argument is basically that because we have domesticated wheat, we have spread it all over the world, which from an evolutionary standpoint, it could be thought of that wheat domesticated us to spread it everywhere.
Yeah, and like I said, that'd be an interesting thing we can go over after the
all
reading.
I know,
because I don't want to lose Rad Hammond.
Yeah, you can kill
I do have a time limit.
Yeah, and Despy
be able to be conscious.
And Despy does too, which is why I don't want to lose you guys before we get done with the reading. We can get into the tangents when we get done with the reading, because this one will come back up, because it's fucking interesting that we have this dude's diet from so many thousands of years ago, because he was frozen solid as he died. Okay, so
you're up, Jack. I think.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Speaking
I'm
of
back
frozen
around.
solid, let's get deeper and deeper into hell.
Yeah, we're getting closer to that frozen lake. And if, continuing his first discourse, they have that art, he said, not learned aright, that more tormenteth me than doth this bed, but 50 times shall not rekindled be the countenance of the lady who reigns here, ere thou shalt know how heavy is the art. And as thou wouldest the sweet world to return, say why that people is so pitiless against my race in each one of its laws. Whence I to him, the slaughter and great carnage, which I have, the slaughter and great carnage with crimson stained Arabia. God damn it, I'm speaking all kinds of bad. Arabia causes such origens as our temple to be made. And after his head he with a sigh had shaken, there I was not alone, he said, nor surely without a cause had with the others moved. But there I was alone, where every one consented to laying waste to Florence, he who defended her with open face. So now this is where I will actually break back and go back up to my commentary that I wrote for this week. This is where we are getting into Dante's humanism, and emphasizing his dual approach. While condemning the heretical views, he simultaneously empathizes with their suffering. This duality reflects Dante's complex understanding of human nature, recognizing both the sin and inherent dignity of the individual. Dante's journey is not just a theological quest, but also a deeply personal and transformative experience, embodying the broader human struggle for meaning and redemption. Because, like, this is... Every time he brings out his humanism, it is always in conflict with Virgil, the person that he loves greater than almost anybody other than Beatrice. Like he truly deifies this man to the point so much that this virtuous pagan is who the intercessory prayer goes to. Not an angel, not a saint, not some other denizen of heaven who could come down and be this guide as would be very available to them. They get this almost like perfect pagan is the way that Dante views him. Because Dante is truly in love with this man, if not romantically, very much mentally. Many argue that he is emotionally and romantically in love with Virgil because of all the writings of Virgil. I don't know how much I buy that, but it's funny to think about nonetheless. Because they're separated by centuries. Can you truly be romantically in love with somebody who's been dead for centuries that you never met and never knew?
I mean, they've met now.
Well, in hell, yeah. But that's what I mean. That's why he writes about him in this way. He deifies him as the most virtuous of pagans. Hence why he ends up being the tool of Mary, Saint Lucia, and laterally Beatrice.
And speaking of that, do you notice that lady in the sentence there is capitalized?
Yes, and we will bring back that. Yes, you were right, you motherfucker. It was Mary that they were talking about originally.
Right.
It's a running joke because it was a capitalization issue within the English that led to our understanding that this was actually referring to Mary, as opposed to just referring to Beatrice as had been previously indicated in one of the previous tercets. So like we now have the running joke, Despy was right. And he's still gonna rub it in our face, although I'm still gonna give him shit over temperance and prudence because he's wrong.
No, I'm right. I'm right on that one. I know I'm right on that one. I've been wrong on other things in this thing here, but I'm right on that one.
Oh.
And just a little side note, because I had to look this up. Arbia is a river, and he's referring to it being stained red in the wake of a battle between Florence and Siena.
Well, yeah, that was just my dumbass reading too quick and adding a letter. Because we add vowels most, which is why you can remove almost every vowel from a word except for if it's the first letter of a word, and a person is able to indicate which word in English it is.
So just to possibly give you a Despy was wrong moment here, Hollander at least suggests that the La Donna, the lady here, does not refer to Mary, but in fact Proserpina, the Roman version of Persephone, who is thought of as the Queen of Hell. And I think this is backed up if you look at the Musa and Sayers translations, both of whom translate that as the Queen down here, as in the Queen of Hell. So, based on both context and commentary, I do not think the lady in question here is in fact Mary.
I mean, they could argue that, but at least according to script... Go ahead.
Is the proposed Mary, Mother of Jesus?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the reason I'll say this could still be a Despy is right moment is because there are two rulers of hell after the end of times. Mary and her son. Just
fair enough, but like we also know that this is not end times. This is
yeah, but ruler here, she rules there after her ascension to heaven, remember?
Assumption, not ascension. She did not ascend.
Assumption, sorry, assumption. Ascension in the colloquial sense, not the theological sense, sorry. Because, Catholics have to fucking make up their own rules for words. Oh, wait, it's ascending.
Ascend is what humans do in Star Trek when they're ready to go to the next level of,
Well, it's also what they do in Stargate, and I think Stargate did. I think
not Riker. The kid.
Crusher, and technically Crusher didn't ascend. He became a traveler.
He became a traveler.
Yeah.
I love that we said that at the same time, at least from my perspective.
Wait, don't you have to ascend to be a traveler?
Not in the same way, because there's other species that ascend that are not travelers. You have to be invited to be a traveler. Whereas technically anybody who reaches a particular level of enlightenment can ascend, which is why we get the Lower Decks episode that we had, I think it was season 3.
Yeah. And then, but in the second season of Prodigy, we see that and the second season of Picard, both.
I haven't seen second season of Prodigy yet. I've only seen the first episode. It looked good, but it looked weird because the animation changed.
It did a little bit, but honestly, it didn't bother me. But yeah, we see that in in the case of the travelers, yes, you are invited to become a traveler after you make certain realizations. The main realization being what was shown in season 1 of The Next Generation, the idea that space and time and thought are not the separate and distinct things we think them to be, but in fact they are all connected. And so when you have made that realization and reached a certain level of understanding, you are invited to become a traveler, and that allows you to, basically their whole thing is they, as the name suggests, travel around, but also they try to protect timelines.
But those are assumptions that come from non-canon books. The other thing that we have is
that's been confirmed in Prodigy.
Well,
yeah, no, it was actually confirmed in Prodigy.
They confirmed that they protect timelines?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so they made non-canon canon. That works. Either way, the other thing that we see...
I don't know much about ascending. I just know that here in Australia we're at the arse end of the earth.
Also
I mean,
true.
technically they confirmed this in true. But technically they confirmed this in the second season of Picard, because that was the whole point of the supervisors, was that they were protecting certain people within the timeline, but their purpose was to protect the overall timeline.
I ended up skipping over season 2 of Picard. It just didn't get me. Season 3
it wasn't great.
I watched it, but I retained very little of it because it was so lackluster. And I don't particularly care for Picard overall. It wasn't horrible, but it was not what I was expecting. And go on, Ancom, you were about to say something.
I mean, I enjoyed season 2 of Picard. It wasn't as good as season 3, but I actually thought in some ways it was better than season 1. I certainly retain more of season 2 than I do of season 1.
I'll be honest, Picard, it wasn't bad, but it is, in my opinion, one of the most forgettable. It's not bad like Enterprise was. Fucking horrible ass show. But it was just, how to put it, after everything we have seen from Patrick Stewart over the years, this felt like it was phoned in.
Fair enough.
I'm going to pull us back to a different kind of non-canon discussion, the biblical non-canon of this book.
Yes.
So I just wanted to confirm my previous thing about line 80, which is Longfellow in his commentary says, specifically for 80, the moon, called in the heavens Diana, on earth Luna, and in the infernal regions Proserpina. So they are literally referring to the moon as the lady who reigns down here.
I mean, I can understand that.
Sense. Why would Mary reign in hell?
Because we know that she does with Jesus after the end of times because of scriptural references. But that takes whether or not you take Revelations to be actually literal canon as it is indicated within its placement within the book, or the forgery that scholars believe it is now.
The only reason why I said anything is just because it's capitalized. It's one of the only words in that sentence there that's not like at the beginning that's capitalized in there. And in most things, especially when you're dealing with religious texts, if it's capitalized, then that usually means that it is referring to somebody specifically, either Mary or part of the Trinity.
So it's worth noting that of the three that we have here, only Longfellow capitalizes the word, but also in both others, the word is translated not to lady, but to queen. And so I think the capitalization of the word lady is meant not to refer to a person with a specific gender, but rather a title, lady as opposed to lord. So, I think that's the reason he does it. The Italian is simply La Donna, which just means the woman or the lady.
Which is why the queen is a interpolation by Sayers and Musa. It's
not entirely, because the full phrase is La Donna qui regge, which regge being the Italian
regal
or royalty, so the lady of royalty.
Well, yeah, but that could be the
lady who reigns.
Well, yeah, but that could be a countess. That could, or a contessa. That could be like
a countess, a duchess.
Yeah, so on and so forth. Yeah, yeah.
I am back. Just had to welcome in some raiders.
Oh, welcome raiders. We are covering Dante for scholarly apparatus for university kids who are going through this, which is why we're going over commentary. Yes, we have devolved a little bit into tangents, but that's okay. They are needed breaks too. And when we get back to Radham here in a minute for his portion of reading, he's about to make all of us look bad again. Now that being said,
your readings have been lovely,
except for my screw ups. I need to read through these more often so that I could actually like speak them from memory as opposed to reading them on the fly, because that's where the misspeaks come from. Because I read faster than I speak. That being said,
wait for the audiobook.
Well, audiobook I will be editing if I ever actually do one. So,
audiobook as read by real Radham.
I would be more than happy to.
Oh God, yeah, that would be actually something I might.
Quite the undertaking, but it'd be fun.
Yeah, for this one, absolutely. Because 100 cantos at average of 136 lines apiece. Each one average.
And that was also a fantastic pun.
Yeah, true. God damn you and your puns. Now, that being said, it's your time to read, and we'll be picking up on, I think it is...
line am I starting?
No, it's Despy, then you. Despy, we're picking up, I think it is line 94.
And I'm going to...
It looks like our natural stopping point is 108.
Okay, sounds good. So hereafter may your seed repose. I him entreated. Solve for me that knot which has entangled my conceptions here. It seems that you can see, if I hear rightly, beforehand wheresoe'er time brings with it, and in the present have another mode. We see like those who have imperfect sight, the things, he said, that distant are from us. So much still shines on us the sovereign ruler. When they draw near or are, is wholly vain our intellect. And if none brings it to us, not anything know we of your human state. Hence thou canst understand that wholly dead will be our knowledge from the moment when the portal of the future shall be closed.
Yeah, see, and this is it's a natural stopping point because of talking, but this is also like to go back to what Rich was like bringing up, that they seem to have foreknowledge. See, this is where I think that their knowledge is used as a form of torture, because they talk about it being closed to them. They don't really know it, but they know it. So it seems like this is us like making up the fake news stories to our prisoners in Gitmo. It seems like another form of psychological torment within hell.
It is, yeah, but they are seeing the real future.
Yeah, but it seems like fragments of. Yeah, it's not like they're being lied to like we were lying to those people, but it seems like they're being showing fragments that will make them the most pained.
Sure, yeah. But portal to the future, is this the Guardian of Forever?
I believe so. What was that, right now?
With hypothesis, with the, because you've mentioned that none of the residents of hell have knowledge of the present, but they are kind of cursed with fragments of knowledge of the future. Many of them will have been in hell long enough that they, if the mechanism was that simple, that by being given knowledge of the future, they should have knowledge of the present.
Mm-hmm.
This implies that their curse is their curse is weirder than that, to only have these fragments of knowledge of the future and never know what currently is.
Yeah, because they don't know the passage of time in hell. For all they know, it's been 1,000 years or 10. They have no way of there's no daily passage of I believe you're right, but I believe that is the byproduct of the fact that they have no frame of time in hell. The closest thing that they would have a time frame of hell is the constant pulses of wind that are being generated by Satan's wings. And how do you time yourself by something that's beating frantically and erratically?
Yeah, you autistically count it.
Well, yeah, but if the if the interval isn't accurate, if the interval isn't accurate, yeah, it's like go ahead.
You still autistically count it.
Does the river Leith exist within Dante's hell?
Technically, all 5 of the rivers exist. The Lethe, Cocytus, Phlegethon, etc. We do not interact with all of them, though. But he is using that topology, yes.
Not by name necessarily. There are unnamed bodies of water occasionally.
Yeah, but he is using that topology as described in the Aeneid.
This is the RPG nerd in me going, okay, what's a mechanism for forgetfulness?
Yeah, and we have the
why isn't the snippeted knowledge of the future retained to form a knowledge of the present?
I mean, it could just be the quite literal curse of God instead of trying to find. Yeah, like that's the problem with some of these. Some of these don't make sense, and you're right. The contradiction would be there. For example, we have seen certain ancient Greek warlords in hell already at this point. They have been in hell longer than any of the known nations of the world that are in existence in Dante's time are even a concept. So like they would literally be so far into what would be their future, essentially they would be in all that foreknowledge and snippets they're given. But at least the way I've always interpreted it, because of the things we get within scripture, you will be in hell for all eternity, but all eternity can pass in seconds or in longer than you could ever imagine. Is the implications is that you will never know how long you're in hell.
So it's really interesting.
Musa just point out that they are told snippets of news about the current day, by Dante himself. So it could, and they don't seem to forget that. So I think maybe they do, the memory of it does persist when they see something from the future. It's just because they don't know when it is. They don't know, the point at which the future becomes the present.
Yeah. Okay. What were you about to say, Despy?
Well, I just think it's a curse, they're in hell being cursed, that you have to, remember your past, but also get snippets of the future, but you can never live in the present.
Well, and this would, again, going back to scriptural implication, that not living in the present would almost be an allegory for separation from God, since God is all of the present.
Because people dwelling on the past is, in essence, their reason for being stuck in hell and their inability to leave hell.
Yeah, because anybody can leave hell except for their own vices. Yeah, it could be.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it gets complicated because we have to be very careful not to take too much of modern theology into our understanding of this. We kind of have to stop our theological understanding at the 14th century because of that's when Dante lived, and he didn't have foreknowledge. As humanistic as he was a forebearer of what we now see as modern humanism, and he was building on very rudimentary forms from previous philosophers. So how
much we got left?
Not much. It's this one goes, I think, to 36. Let me look for a second because we're almost there. Yeah, it goes to 36. We're almost done. So we stopped at.
Although he does have the artifice of foreknowledge, right? In that he's writing about a character from years ago, so he can predict. His characters can predict the future just because he, as the author, is living in the future.
Yeah, and the other aspect of it is because of his use of almost no living contemporary figures. Almost all of the contemporary figures he uses have recently passed, basically, before his writing of them. This would also, like, bringing it back to the other parts that we haven't touched on as heavily this canto, this would also serve as social commentary to the his generation and the generation that follows him. Don't make the same mistakes we did. Like, this is that same kind of thing of do not fall into the curse of these damn souls of not living in the present and only living in the past and forgetting what that gives you in the future, because that's what led to the bloodshed at Campaldino. One of the things that most historians think gave Dante PTSD. Because it is after this point that we find records that he became a pretty heavy fucking drinker. Because he went from buying 1 wine barrel every month to 6 wine barrels every month.
That's a lot of wine barrels.
Well, but that could be his household got bigger. It could have been not he was a drunk. It could have just been now he's got more money, more influence. It could have been any implication, but a lot of historians think that it gave him PTSD because of this, because this persisted until his death.
Right.
Since we don't know if he was the one drinking it, I don't know how much I buy that, because if this is a fucking drunk writing this, I'd be absolutely fucking terrified of what this man could have written sober.
Right.
I mean, Hemingway was a drunk, but he wrote most of his shit sober, which is why it's fucking phenomenal. You can tell when the page starts to trail off with him when he had a little bit too much that day. And I never see that with Dante. Now, that being said, we are back up to our illustrious fucking pro reader here. And we are starting at line 109. And it looks like the natural stopping point would be 126. And then we'll close out with Rich for the last 10 lines.
Then I, as if compunctious for my fault, said, "Now then, you will tell me that fallen one, that still his son is with the living joined. And if just now in answering I was dumb, tell him I did it because I was thinking already of the error you have solved me. And now my master, who was recalling me, wherefore more eagerly I prayed the spirit, that he would tell me who was with him there. He said, with more than 1,000 here I lie, within here is the second Frederick, and the cardinal, and I of the rest I speak not. And of the rest I speak not. Which part were we going to?
126.
Cool. Thereon he hid himself, and I topwards... Thereon he hid himself, and I topwards, the ancient poet turned my steps, reflecting upon that saying, which seemed hostile to me. He moved along, and afterward, thus going, he said to me, why art thou so bewildered? And I, in his inquiry, satisfied him.
So, okay, the reason that this is where natural stopping point, but I also want to go back. He's talking about Emperor Frederick II, who is one of the most famous enemies of the church, quote unquote, because this is the emperor who had his empire stolen from him after the death of his father, Frederick Barbarossa. He literally had to fight multiple wars with papal forces to gain his empire back to him and be truly named Emperor Frederick II. Like, the fact that Dante brings him up as one of also the most famous Italian leaders of, like, virtue because he was very good to his people. It makes me wonder why. Did he view Frederick as a heretic because Frederick would use Islamic mystics in his court? Did he view, because this is the circle for heretics? Frederick was a Christian. Why is he in the circle for heretics? It's a question that historians and commentaries argue over. There's no true consensus over. So to me, this is either a judgment from Dante trying to say that virtue is not enough even for a Christian. Being kind to your people is not enough if you are not kind to the church. Because he could be viewed as somebody who strong-armed the papacy, because he was. Or this...
Well,
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that Musa has an opinion on this.
Go
ahead. If you, by the way, Radham, if you go back into there, I've got some notes now in the spreadsheet. And in the Musa column is typically where I put my Wikipedia links inside of the lines so that you can look at the historical background of characters or whatever. And so on line 119, I've done that for Frederick II and for the Cardinal, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But according to Musa, he's reported to have once said, "If I have a soul, I have lost it for the Ghibellines."
Okay, so maybe that is why he's placed in the heretic circle.
There's two problems there. One is him himself saying that he lost his soul for the Ghibellines. The Ghibellines are another enemy of the Guelphs, or of the Black Guelphs, even though at this point Dante cares more about the problems with the white Guelphs than he does with the Ghibellines. But still, he said that. And also he prefaces that with "if I have a soul," implying that he doubts the immortality of the soul, which is also regarding his sin.
Well, but Frederick had at one point in time, he hadn't been truly excommunicated, but he had the ad humendo or whatever it is, the basically cursed by the papacy, but not excommunicated from the church thing, because that is how they stole his empire from him, is he was no longer considered holy.
But keep in mind, the most recent three popes in Dante's time are all in hell.
Yeah.
So it may be that the fact that those popes didn't excommunicate him doesn't mean anything, right? At least within the context of the poem, what Dante witnesses is a higher authority than anything the Vatican may say.
Okay, and for those in the audience. Yeah, and for those in the audience, Emperor Frederick II existed during the time period of roughly 1150 to 1250. In that rough time period, he is one of the influential forces of the Fourth Crusade. Just so that you can look it up later. Because Frederick is a very interesting character, and honestly, we could do a whole episode on just him because of his history is just fascinating. But since you know more about the Cardinal, Rich, take it away about the Cardinal.
Oh, I don't know more about the Cardinal, but I do have Musa's note.
Oh, okay.
And also Sayers. So Sayers just says that it's Ottaviano degli Ubalandi. So I've linked to his Wikipedia page if you want to know who he was historically. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. It is the Cardinal, I think, who said that. If I have a soul, I've lost it for the Ghibellines. If you look at the note,
125, yeah.
Yeah. 119. Well, 119.
Well, no, Musa's is 119. He goes line by line. 124 is for Frederick, 125 is for the Cardinal, and the super numbers for Longfellow.
Well, that makes it even that makes it even more heretical if a cardinal is going against the Pope in favor of the in favor of the emperor instead.
Yeah.
Well, it was because the reason, and this is more history than we really need to go into, but the reason that the Pope had essentially stolen the crown from Frederick was because that particular Pope was unscrupulously bribed into doing so, because during this particular time period, the Vatican was near bankruptcy and was almost teetering on the edge of potential extinction. And this was the Pope's way of saving the church without going to war.
Okay, so Musa says that Frederick's sin is that he was an Epicurean, that it was common to believe that he was an Epicurean at that time. It was the cardinal who then makes those statements about the soul that Dante regards as heretical.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Now, that being said, I don't know that cardinal from history. I will look him up later.
Is this Epicurean as in a devotion to pleasure?
Yes.
Right, yes, exactly.
And from what I know of Frederick, that makes almost no goddamn sense. But that's for another conversation, because that will be for a long while. Because
I mean, having a reputation for being a thing and actually being a thing, or not necessarily.
Yeah, I'm not saying the reputation didn't exist, but from what I know of him, that reputation makes no goddamn sense. But again, as we have talked about in previous episodes, Dante is working from imperfect knowledge. He did not have access to all of the Greek myths. He only had access to certain versions of the Greek myths. Specifically.
Well, I mean, Frederick was way more recent than that.
Well, but he would not have the knowledge that we have today that has been given to us by archaeology, anthropology, history, etc. Yeah, like he only had the knowledge that they had of him, and he is he's a couple hundred years previous, but it's still not all the stuff we have.
100 years, more like 100 years previous. If that, he dies in 1250.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about like the effects of his life, like the actual like histories would have been written over the previous century, 2 centuries, because it would have been covering that time period because of the way they did histories in the 14th century. That being said, imperfect knowledge, he would have only had what was available to him. And when you're dealing with 14th century Italy, who is the greatest propagandist in this area? The fucking Catholic Church. They are the ones who proliferate the most documents during this time period in anywhere in Europe, let alone in Italy.
All right.
Yes.
Probably finish this out here.
Yep. And we're gonna give this.
I mean, the first line at 127, right?
Yep. We're starting at 127 and finishing out.
Okay, so here's another thing that they're going to start with talking about memory. So this will be interesting. Let memory preserve what thou hast heard against thyself, that sage commanded me. And now attend here, and he raised a finger. When thou shalt be before the radiance sweet of her whose beauteous eyes all things behold, from her thou'lt know the journey of life. Unto the left hand he turned his feet, and we walked the wall and went towards the middle, along a path that strikes unto the valley, which even up there, unpleasant, made its stench. I just want to point out, they're turning to the left again, which they do everywhere in the poem, except for in Canto 9. As they're leaving the city of Dis, they turn to the right. And then now we're back to turning to the left. So now we're no longer following the contours of Dis. We're now following the contours of hell more broadly.
Yeah, we're back to being sinister instead of dexterous.
In this case, the contour of Circle 6.
Oh, and for your chat, that is a little joke we've had because of the actual origin of these words. In Latin, sinister is to be left-handed, dexterous is to be right-handed, and because of a particular Islamic practice that infiltrated Christianity about the 1100s, it became viewed as unclean to be left-handed. And this comes from the Islamic practice of you eat with your right hand and you wipe with your left hand. So if somebody in that culture gives you their left hand to shake your hand, they're insulting you.
Also, I just wanted to say, also we have another reference to Beatrice here, right? Of her whose beauteous eyes all things behold.
Is that
a little more clear? One whose splendid eyes see everything.
Well, but is that Beatrice or is that Mary? Because Mary would be the one who truly sees all, whereas Beatrice and even Lucia would just be beatified souls within heaven.
Well, at least Sayers is of the opinion that this is Beatrice. I haven't read other commentaries theorizing, but we don't have any capitalization here.
Yeah.
Again, that wouldn't be a feature of Italian anyway. It would be a feature of the translators. But none of the translators are capitalizing anything here, like unusual.
Well, the context clue I'm using is that, you know, it's from her that you know the journey of life. That Beatrice, obviously that could not be what gives it to him because of when she died. Lucia he never met, and therefore Mary would be the person who could give that level of knowledge that the others could not.
Well, I think the idea is she's the one who's inspired him, right? And so I think he's talking about inspiration of having fallen in love with Beatrice, you know, at a young age.
Maybe. I don't know. It's just the particular verbiage here. It just seems like from her thou'lt know the journey of thy life. He said what you will learn from your life is coming from this
here's
person.
Where Ancom's translation might help, because Musa translates it to from her, future tense. From her you will learn your life's itinerary.
Oh,
and it will be later on Beatrice who guides him through Paradiso.
Okay, so yeah,
look up the word here. Because the Italian word viaggio. Yeah, so okay, that translates to voyage. Oops. So dalle sapere di tua vita il viaggio. So yeah, the last words, your life's voyage. But let me see if I can figure out.
At least from the way you read that is in the past tense or the present tense. It's definitely not in the future tense. At least that I can get from the Latin roots.
Yeah. Okay, so saprai is just to know.
Oh, here's interesting though. Sayers says it's Beatrice, under whose guidance Dante in the heaven of Mars has the course of his life revealed to him by his ancestor Cacciaguida. And that happens in Paradiso 16.
Yeah, when we have quite a long way to go before we get there.
Right. This is a foreshadowing, apparently.
Okay.
I'm seeing future tense from all of the translations.
Yeah, but I at least from what I heard you say in the Italian, that's present or past tense, not future tense.
It might be future progressive.
Ooh. Damn. I wish my fucking ecclesiastical Latin was better.
Mm-hmm. Or just Italian. This is honestly like I've always been told this is closer to modern Italian than it is to ecclesiastical Latin.
Yeah, but my problem is ecclesiastical Latin would be the closest thing that we in this group have to 14th century Italian. Because modern Italian, their pronunciation has changed dramatically, etc. Their use cases of certain verbiage has changed dramatically. So like we have to use the older verbiage because it's what would be closer to what he's using.
I mean, I think when Virgil says the one whose splendid eyes see everything, I think he just means she's in heaven, right? So she's got the vantage point over which she can see everything on earth.
Sorry, it took me a second. So sapere, the verb means to know, but the modified form saprai is the second person singular future. So it is specifically a future tense verb.
Interesting. Fucking Latin languages and their weird freaking.
Yeah, but it's saprai that we would need to translate, right?
Because that's what I'm.
I see.
So sapere, the root simply means to know, but saprai is the second person, so you, singular, single person, future. So for another, so yeah, when you're telling another person that this is something they will know in the future, they will learn it. So yes, it is like, that is unambiguously future tense.
Interesting.
While you guys have been having that discussion, I've been trying and failing to find some Australian song lyrics.
Which ones?
Palmer County has a song called Dexter and Sinistra. You remember the very beginning of it. But, Dexter and Sinistra, they loved hard. They went together like cold beer and a hot day. Two right all the way. Yeah, they lived every moment like their last, and that was fine for a time. But one day there were no more roses, just bad memories of too much wine. And things were said, too rich for young blood, and once said they never really went away. There was tears and sadness and harsh words and guilt. Soon cracks began to appear in the house that Dex and Sissy built. Sissy, that's what he called her, she hated it just the same. She said, you know, Dex, sometimes this bed feels like the Nullarbor Plain. There's this distance between us, and that's all I can remember. It's a beautiful spoken word piece.
Yeah, that's great. I'll have to fucking look that one up.
Sorry, off topic except Dexter and Sinistra, but...
Well, no, it applies very much so, because, going to the left is the sinister. Like, this is something that would have been ingrained in him, no matter how non-superstitious he may have been, because of the culture around him. This would have been one of those things that going to the left, you know, taking the left-hand road at the fork was considered bad luck, so on and so forth. Like, these are things that just innately were ingrained within the culture around him. Who knows how much he would have internalized without realizing. You know, and the fact that he does it, is it intentional or is it a byproduct of his culture? Both have implications that are highly important to our reading, but I don't think any even historian, because the earliest commentary I find for this is about 1540, could know. They're too far separated. How do you know what was internalized by a man, again, you never met? Your interpretation of his interpretations, as Dante's doing with Virgil? Or the interpretations of 15 other cunts before you got there?
Yeah, this is a Greek tradition, right? Like Plato does this a lot in his dialogues. He's like relating a story that so-and-so told me, and he heard it from so-and-so, and he heard it from so, like that. In a lot of his dialogues, that's what happens at the beginning. Like, oh, Glaucon told this to, you know, whoever.
Yeah, you get a line of succession of the story before the story. Yeah,
by the time you get to the dialogue that you're reading, which is Plato's dialogue, it's already like a fourth-hand story.
Well, and this goes back to the anthropological understanding. This comes from the fact that we are dealing with pretty much the transitionary period in history between mostly spoken word tradition being passed down to a high plethora of written tradition being passed down.
There's also like a difference in level of authority, right? If you're saying, I heard it from someone who heard it from someone who heard it from someone, which is what Platonic dialogues do a lot, you can contrast that with the invocation to the muses, where these words are coming directly from the gods, so you can trust them like word for word. That's like a sort of a different claim.
Well, unless those words happen to come from Discord, but you know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have to hop off here. I have an engagement tomorrow morning. So
Aikido again?
Well, we made it to the end.
No, actually, we have the typhoon is coming, and we were supposed to have kids over at the time when the typhoon is coming.
Typhoon party, nice.
And we decided to have them come a day early instead, so they didn't have to be here during the typhoon.
Oh, really? I mean, I guess this is a question, because when I was in Cambodia, typhoons were like a big deal, because like we had open window, all that shit. How bad is it really for you guys in like modern Japan?
One of the last times we had an extremely heavy rain, which is supposed to rain heavy. What is it? My cars in front of our house had water inside of them, and we had to go and buy brand new ones. So, and it filled part of it actually got into our foundation. So we actually had to go in and have that completely dried out. We had to pull out the tatami in our guest room because it molded because of the amount of water that got in. And when I went outside to help push cars around, it literally went up past my knees, and you know how tall I am.
Yeah, that's just amazing to me. Is that because you're in the lowland around rice fields, or is that just how it is in Japan in general?
We're technically on the coastline here, but it's really interesting where the road comes to where like the train tracks are near our house. There's like a dip, so there's like a dip that comes in, and we're like on the edge of that dip.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I asked is because for us, there was a reason our houses were like 6 feet off the ground. Like,
yep.
Yeah, so like it was a big endeavor for us. Like the winds weren't that big of a deal because we were so far inland where I was. The rain, on the other hand, kicked the living shit out of us.
So they're expecting, what was it, 300 millimeters of rain in 12 hours is what they're expecting.
Okay, for those of you in the audience who don't do centimeters, that's like a foot of rain, a little bit more.
Yep, in 12 hours.
That's intense.
Yep.
What was the amount of rain? I missed it.
300 millimeters in 12 hours.
Oof, yikes.
Yep.
Before you run off, I just want to show Canto 11. There's this lovely engraving here. We have beautiful. Dante and someone draped in cloth who is dummy thick. Beautiful curves. I have no idea who that is, but they are lovingly rendered.
Oh God! Yeah.
And this is what canto is this?
For the next canto.
Canto 11, the next one.
Oh, I guess we'll find out next week.
Yeah, and that is beautiful. Honestly, I think when we get to I think it's Canto 16 is when we start getting into the heavy stuff, or we're gonna have to do a lot of commentary. Before we go to between 15 and 16, we should do an episode going through the art of the Inferno up to this point, and I hope you can be here for that one too, Radham, because I'd love to have your art here for that to compare with the other stuff we've been looking at.
We'll try to be.
Yeah, that's.
It depends on what I've got scheduled when.
Oh, this would be
my work schedule.
Yeah, this would be 6 weeks from now, so I don't think any of us know what we'll be doing
I know
specifically.
My work schedule a week out.
Yeah.
All right, and with that, I will see you all later. Take care.
Love to the kids and family. Be safe.
Yep.
I found a copy of all of this art on archive.
Before you leave, look at line 108. I put a link in 108 in the spreadsheet.
Okay.
Yep.
Line.
And for those in the audience, the reason I don't bring this up is this is a document that has some of our real names on it, and some of us don't use our real names online, so eventually this spreadsheet will be released in a sanitized form in the descriptions below.
Line 108.
Oh,
meme-tastic.
It took her 2 hours and 19 minutes to show up, but here's one of the ham bones. This is Squirticus minimus. She was the runt of the litter.
That's amazing. It's fantastic.
What's the link say? Because I'm not bringing it up.
Line 108 in the spreadsheet.
The link is to the archive.org version of the Gustave Dore illustrations.
Oh, awesome.
So even without Radham, we'll have those here.
Well, I still want him here because his readings are phenomenal. And honestly, like as we go through this, I think because I've been in your chat for so long now, when we start bringing up some more of the occult stuff that's going to be coming up, you're going to be invaluable in the near future.
Excellent.
Because he starts getting into the deeper lore of that. And with that, I bid you good night, Despy. Sleep well, my friend.
Take care.
Next week, we'll definitely have you start because it has some lines that I know you're going to be laughing at when you're done reading.
Is there a yonder in there? Because you know that I love reading yonders as much as you love reading Lamentations.
Not in Longfellow, but no, there's some other good ones you'll enjoy.
I got today's yonder, sadly.
Take care. Bye-bye.
So now we're in the commentary portion where I'll bring up, like, this is referencing a lot of Old Testament scripture that people are unfamiliar with. This is referencing things like Malachi. This is referencing lesser known portions of Isaiah, etc. So, like, Dante is bringing in the deep lore that I don't know how well was understood in the 14th century, because this is one of those population demo things we just can't know because they don't have information like that going this far back. I don't know if these were unknown passages in his time or if they're just unknown by modern theologians because it's of the way that modern theologians cherry pick. I mean, granted, all theologians cherry pick, even going back to Aquinas and Augustine, but
I mean, at the time, it would be largely like, what is the church at the time teaching?
Yeah, and I don't know that because we don't have that record. We don't have records of their sermons, week to week. Rich could probably help with this more because he keeps in touch with the Catholic Church stuff a bit more, but as far as I know, the closest thing we have would be their yearly Christmas services sermon, and that would only be at certain, like, big bishoprics and abbeys. So we wouldn't even have the whole of it. We just have, like, the most populated constituencies sermon once a year.
Yeah.
And that, like, that, and we don't even have that going back before the 12th century because of, like, record purges and stuff within the church. And Rich, if you were talking, you were muted because we don't have you on camera this week. I can't tell.
Did you see my link on 108?
I have not, because I'm not opening it while I have my OBS up.
I got you.
Yeah, because the way that would link up is suddenly all those names are going to appear at the top of the screen, and I don't want that record showing up in video that I have to then edit out.
I see.
That's why I do this Miro board. And by the way, if you've never used Miro, I highly recommend it for, like, when you're going over, like, content, because it's basically a giant flow sheet with limitless borders. Like, I'll actually zoom out a bit. You won't be able to read shit because of the text will get too small, but, like, I have to go back and add the other ones because I was doing one board at a time, but technically I'm going to be able to add all 100 cantos into this board because of how small everything can get.
So the link, are you happy for me to describe it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
The link is Door to the Future. Links to a Reddit post, Star Trek meme, the Guardian of Forever's first playthrough of historical events was less than appreciated by Kirk's party. And it's a Rickroll in a GIF.
Oh, fuck you, Rich.
A Rickroll inside of the Guardian of Forever. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So I've been recently working at an escape room place.
Oh, awesome.
I love those.
So GMing the escape rooms, so doing, like, kind of in-character narration and hints and stuff, and monitoring to make sure people don't break things. And every single escape room at the venue for our next level escape in Sydney CBD has a Rickroll somewhere in it that the players can activate.
I had somebody ask me, like, a young person, like, why do people get so annoyed at Rickrolls? And I'm like, well, for some of us old people, we lived through Rick Astley on the radio, and then we lived through his resurgence due to the internet. And frankly, we're just sick of it. It's just like, we've seen it so many times. And they're like, oh, I don't think that's what it is. I'm like, how old are you? And he's like, 19. And I'm like, my youngest kid is old enough to have babysat you. Please stop.
So, Radham, I actually have a suggestion for how to incorporate such a Rickroll into one of your escape rooms if you haven't done it already.
They are all hard-coded in, but suggest a way.
Oh, yeah. So, I remember an escape room I once did had two like grids of black and white squares that when you combined them together made a QR code, and you could have that QR code go to a Rickroll video.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm the guy. I've only done one escape room because my grandkids wanted to do it, and I went with them. And I'm that guy, I don't pay attention to the clues, I just walk over to the puzzle and just start brute forcing, like, the combinations and shit. And it's like, tick, 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 tick. Like, we had this, this 5-dial, like, you know, the 10-digit combination lock. And I just literally just sat there and just started flipping through it like I was an old bikes thief in the 80s, just trying to get through the combo. Yeah. Because it's just like...
Astounding.
Well, I didn't know what order to do them in, and I'm like, screw it, this one looks easy. Like, that was just how it worked for my brain.
Just on the topic of Rickrolls, there is a fantastic remix, like actually genuinely good, called Ghost Astley Tokyo. It's Hatsune Miiko's Ghost City Tokyo remixed with Never Gonna Give You Up, and it's a banger.
That actually does sound good.
Yeah, there's one that James from the internet will occasionally, very, very rarely, I've only seen it a couple of times in almost 3 years now. It's a mashup that has it mixed in there with like a bunch of other shit to where if you're not paying attention, suddenly you hear it in the middle of like death metal. It's fucking hilarious.
Awesome. Jack, I've popped it in general in your Discord.
Yeah, switch it over.
And I'll put that along with the Cavalcanti song that I mentioned.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because it is... I love messing with kids with stuff like that, but it has to be intelligent. Like the ones who are just like, oh, click this link and it's instantly there. I'm just like, motherfucker, I know that dude's face. Like, I know my own kid's face. It's like, I could literally pick that dude out of a lineup until the day I die because of how often he has showed up. You gotta try harder.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta sneak it in there. Like the person who wrote an essay where the first line of every sentence made the lyrics for the song. That's a phenomenal Rickroll.
And that was done before we had shit like ChatGPT, so that motherfucker needs some like massive credit for pulling that off. As somebody who's worked a little bit on cryptography as a hobby, doing book codes like that's difficult when you intend them. It's even more difficult when you are highly restricted with what words you are trying to encode. Like, that is insanely difficult to do, and everything makes sense. It's a skill I don't have. I could crack it if you give me it, but I couldn't make it if I tried.
I should probably toddle off.
Yeah, it's got to be getting
to flag pretty heavily. It's 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I was about to say it's late for you. On that note, to Radham's chat.
Thank you for having me along.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it was great having you here.
Yeah, and I'm glad we could give you some.
Like to shout anything out? Please feel free.
Oh no, this was just more thanks for joining us, and I was thanking your chat for sitting through our nerd asses saying some weird shit about a book they may not care about and may never have read.
Fair.
Because let's be honest, most of your content is far more entertaining than us.
I had fun with this.
Oh yeah, it's always fun for us, but chat, we may put them to sleep with our fun. Sleep well, my friend, and again, thank you for being here.
Have a beautiful time.
We'll see you next time.
Just need to find my hang up button, wherever that is.
I love Radham. He's a good dude.
The fact that he was able to log off means that he was in purgatory and not hell.
Well, I mean, it's Australia. Everything's trying to kill you. Sounds about right.
Yep.
Yeah, see, this one, like, the commentary is pretty straightforward, which is why I could only write what I did without just starting to sound pedantic and, like, didactic with it, which I didn't want to do, because, like, the humanism's heavily visible in this. Once there's a slight point out of, you see the sympathy in the way that he treats these damn souls compared to every damn soul in the previous canto.
Yeah, so I guess we should talk a little bit about the punishment that the people at this level are getting. The contrapasso.
I mean, this is the fiery entombments where they're essentially buried alive. I mean, what's the contrapasso you take from that?
Well, he's buried down to his chin, right? His chin is above ground, and that's it. But then he can manage to go higher, because 53 he's down to his chin, but then at 54 he
can sit up essentially.
He's kneeling, so he's got part of his body up out of the ground. So they are able to, maybe temporarily, maybe they're in quicksand or something. I don't know.
Or maybe they're just fixed to the spot, and when they're at rest, so to speak, they're only their heads above the land, but when they're struggling, but they can't leave their grave. Maybe that's the visualization we should be thinking of here. Like,
I know later on when we meet the popes, they're going to be underground, but they're going to be all the way underground, like one on top of the other vertically.
Well,
like a post.
And there's more visualization significance to that, but we will get to that soon enough, because that one we could do again. Just like if you guys had the time, we could be here until my wife gets home from work at 7 o'clock this evening, just on Frederick.
Sure,
just because there's that much to go into the man's life about, especially with his conflict with the church. Because I mean, we're talking, the Pope hired assassins to kill him at one point. The Pope literally handed gold to assassins to kill this man. We have records of the Pope doing it himself, not through an intermediary. That's how important this was.
Okay, so this shade, Cavalcanti, is a Guelph.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1260, he returns victoriously. No, he is exiled. He returns victoriously in 1266, and that's when he marries his son Guido and Guido is still alive to this day, within the story.
Oh yeah, that's why he's talking about his son. The son isn't there. Yeah.
There's still, maybe he's trying to influence Guido in some way through this text. Hey, here's how you can avoid going to hell like your father did.
Maybe. I don't know, because no, that would absolutely be allowed, because it would give false sense of hope. Because how's Dante going to give the message? He ain't going back.
What do you mean?
Well, he's heading to heaven, not back to Earth.
No. He goes back to Earth after this.
I know, but Dante doesn't know that yet. The character,
Well, he's been told that, but he doubts it at times.
Yeah,
he doubts that he can get out of hell. Really,
and he further doubts that he can get out of purgatory, and then he doesn't want to leave paradise. That's what I mean. Right. You know, to the character Dante rather than the author Dante, this is an unknown variable to him.
Well, right, but I'm just saying, why did the author Dante write this? Well, could be because he wanted to influence Guido. In some way, Guido is Guelph, so it's ostensibly an ally, you know.
I would think it would probably not be influence Guido specifically, but because of the way that Dante writes, as he's trying to write for posterity with social commentary, I think it's more, this is his defense of, you are not your father, you know, essentially. You know, this is the difference between you and your father, as opposed to this should be the difference between you and your father. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's just how it reads to me, because like as the commentary that you read earlier points out, like this is a person that like Dante holds in high regard. It didn't say that specifically, but it indicated that by the wording. Am my internet
Cavalcanti and Farinata are neighbors in the same tomb in hell, but there doesn't appear to be any interaction between them.
Well, the implication is that there would be, but we just do not see it, no?
Well, right. Yeah, that's what they're pointing out.
But what would that
turn
mean?
around and look at Farinata. So in order to look at Farinata, he has to turn around. Does he have to turn again to look at Cavalcante, or are they in the same?
They don't say. And the way I visioned this when I read it was two headstones like this, feet pointed out, so they're essentially like when they sit up, they're back to back. If that makes like to that's what I visualized when I read it. I could be totally wrong. Because, I mean, think about it. They're going through fields of graves with people stuck, like, rooted to their grave. Technically, the most efficient way to do that would be to head-to-head them like that, if not stack them. But that's what happens later, as we indicated with popes. We lose you, Incom, or is your voice just killing you?
Oh, no, I'm still here. Right now, my voice is actually doing all right. It's my brain that's,
Did you get yourself the vid? You got the brain fog?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, like, yesterday it was mostly coughing. Today it's been a bit of coughing, a lot of, like, stuffy, sinuses, and it's usually with the latter that the brain fog, arrives.
Yeah, the pressure, yeah, all that fun shit.
Mm-hmm.
Now that being said, this is what you get for going to those freaking group settings.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you go to like a show or something last week?
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah. Like, dude, after the pandemic, like, I don't even like going to the fucking store. But that's the one thing I can't avoid.
Yeah, I went to a musical it was actually a premiere here in Boston before it goes to Broadway, which was interesting. Had Kristen Chenoweth in it.
Oh, cool. What was the performance of?
So the musical is called Queen of Versailles. It is based on the life of a woman who built a full-scale replica of the Palace of Versailles in southern Florida.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I've seen that location.
Huh. Yeah, so it was
I didn't know. I didn't actually recognize it as the Palace of Versailles, but I know the place you're looking at. I was like, that looks like an Italian building.
Versailles would have been French, but
when
it was first built, it was
Mediterranean, I should say.
Yeah, when it was first built, it was going to be the largest home in America. So it was about her life, and it was based in part on a documentary of the same name, which covered up to the 2008 financial crash. And then the second act of the play goes into basically everything that happened after that.
Supposed to be the biggest. Okay, I'm just gonna let that one go because I have this sneaky suspicion that Rockefeller estate still holds that record. It's got like 27 fucking buildings in one home.
Well, yeah, I think this is meant to be the largest like single building home, but I don't know.
Yeah, like still, like, have you seen that place up in fucking Mount Vernon that the Rockefellers have? That place is fucking massive.
Yeah, so
I know it from old pictures of the Kennedys and shit.
Yeah, it looks like the current largest home in America is the Biltmore Estate in Nashville, North Carolina, which is 175,000 square feet, 35 bedrooms, 43 bathrooms, and 65 fireplaces. Jesus fuck.
No. What the? That's not a home. That's a Walmart. The fuck.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and apparently
it's not even a Walmart. It's a Walmart Supercenter.
Now, I would say it's bigger than a Walmart Supercenter. 178,000 square feet. That's like 3 Walmart Supercenters, fucker.
I'm in Arkansas. We got some big fucking Walmarts here.
Fair.
Remember, home state of Walmart. Yay, the Waltons fucked this whole state up.
It looks like Versailles at 85,000 square feet is actually number 10 on the thing. And I love this because it started construction. Fuck, when was it? Started construction in 2004, and it's still not finished 20 years later.
This is not really doxing myself, but it gets close. There's this place I lived in Florida where there was this little sub community. Like, I lived in like this normal little like middle class subdivision of this area of Florida, but there was like 2 blocks over, there was a street that ran perpendicular to mine that had this little side street off it that was completely innocuous, just had a little sign in front of it that said Hidden River Estates. Well, you turn off onto this road, you go around this little curve of like trees that block you from seeing any of the houses, and the first house you see is like 8,000 square feet. And every fucking house in that area is absolutely massive. Well, there's this one house 4 fucking people went bankrupt building. The first guy started building it. 4 years in, still not complete, bankrupt, went on the market. Another person bought it. Went in, started doing all the stuff, started finishing the plans. Didn't look like they were changing anything. It just looked like they were continuing to build more. That person went bankrupt. 4 fucking people did that shit. 20 years that house wasn't finished, and it wasn't anywhere near the size of the place you're talking about. So I can believe it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, let me switch scenes so that nobody can see my browser for a second, because I'll send you a link to the place, because this is also like when I was younger. This was like, there was this little area of it that it's like an island that's for sale. It was just it was interesting. Where's the map? No, not the estates at Tradition, you fucking idiot. Okay, I'll have to just, because I know where it is on the map, I'll actually just have to go find it. There's that, Rosso, Floresta. Yeah, let's see. Because I can send this to you guys in DM. Discord. There's Rich. Where's Ancom? There you are. Yeah, this is like a couple of blocks from where I lived. And that area you see, the Hidden River Drive, every house on that road is a multi-million-dollar home. And every house outside of this little subdivision is like 70, 80 grand.
Oh, wow.
You would never know this subdivision exists unless you make that little right-hand turn on Elwood.
Yep.
To go to the right.
But yeah, you make that little right-hand turn onto Elwood, you get into that place, and suddenly you're in multi-million-dollar homes. Like, there was one house in there that's like 7,000-8,000 square feet. its mailbox is a perfect replica of the house to scale. The mailbox was like the size of like an igloo cooler. But it was a perfect scale replica of the house. Like, these people were out of their fucking mind, more money than sense. Like, one of the pool decks, because I used to clean pools in that particular area when I was in my teens. One of the pool decks in that area is made out of triavertine marble, Ancom. This is what they put outside.
I don't even know. Triavertine marble?
Very, very expensive marble.
Gotcha.
This is what they put outside in a screen room for the deck around their pool. That pool deck is probably like $1 million alone.
Yeah, we have a similar situation in my neighborhood where throughout the majority of the neighborhood, the house values are sub $1 million. Most of them are duplexes. But then you have one specific stretch of road that kind of encompasses, I'd say, a quarter of the neighborhood, and all of the houses with, like, along that stretch of road and nearby are like between 1.5 to 3 mil. So yeah, it's like this one little tiny rich section of the wider neighborhood.
Yeah, and if you look at that little map I sent you, that area that says golf course, that's the island that's for sale that you can buy. That the golf course is not really a golf course. It's like a little like 4-hole golf course set up around this house that he labels as a golf course because it saves you taxes. Like, if you were to go find that area on the map, and I could DM you the city, but it's pretty easy to find with the streets that you have there. If I were to like go into Google Street View and like start like walking you around that area, you just be like, what the holy fuck is this? Like, I mean, it's absolutely insane amounts of wealth. And just realizing I got a smudge on my camera. That just got made worse. I'll need to get actual proper cleaning. Silk isn't enough sometimes. Now, that being said, going back to the context of Dante, like, he put certain peoples into this area that he views them as heretics, yet even the rest of wider Christendom does not. And that implication to me is important, because why does he consider them heretics when even the Vatican, who to some of these people that was their enemy, does not consider them heretical? Any insight from the two of you?
Sorry, say that again.
He puts certain people in here as heretics that even the Vatican doesn't recognize as heretics, and I don't understand the implications of why he views them as a heretic, even when the papacy does not.
Well, I mean, he portrays the last few popes themselves as heretics, according to.
No, in hell, not heretics. This is the circle of heretics that we're in now.
Oh, okay.
Probably because those characters themselves are associated with basic heresies. So he's just looking for emblematic people who are, if they're not within living memory, still like close to it.
Well, that may have been why he chose these particular ones, because it was easier, but he would have had a reason. You know, Dante, he's never singular meaning. He doesn't just do something because it's convenient.
Well, he seems to be pointing out Epicureans.
So would you say that he would have been an aesthetic humanist, perhaps? Rather than an Epicurean humanist?
Well, he's he's a Catholic humanist, but that does. But
well, yeah, but
like,
I'm talking
you can't be an athist.
no,
Obviously, you
not
can't be
not atheistic,
no.
an aesthetic, the simplistics, the simplistics over hedonistic. Sorry, I used the antiquated word. My mistake.
Well, I mean, I don't know about all that. I'm just saying that these characters, like when I look up Farinata on Wikipedia, he seems to be associated with that as well. Also suspected, I think, of. Oh, here we go. Heresy died in 1264. Farinata actually was found guilty.
Oh, he was. I know the cardinal wasn't. I didn't know the
Exhumed
Farinata
from the
was.
resting place in Santa Ripera, tried for heresy.
Oh, he
So
was done
he's
posthumously.
one of those guys whose dead body was put on trial.
Okay, that's why I didn't know about it. The posthumous removal. Okay.
Franciscan-led Inquisition. The remains were subjected to posthumous execution. According to Boccaccio in his commentary on Dante. Oh man, Boccaccio's commentary would be great because he's close to, a contemporary.
Yeah,
The
I haven't been using
discovered,
that.
among other things, that Farinata denied life after death. He was of the opinion of Epicurus, according to Boccaccio.
Yeah,
So
but
this Epicurean.
Yeah, well, well, that part I agree with. But the posthumous excommunication, that's why I didn't know about it, because he was still, when he died, still not considered a heretic. The heresy came later. Ugh, that's so stupid. Why is the Catholic Church so stupid sometimes? Sorry.
Farinata appears with several other atheists and heretics in Canto X, since they denied the immortality of the soul. Since they denied the immortality of the soul, their eternal punishment is to be entombed in fiery coffins, the dead among the dead within the city of Dis. Have they still not left Dis?
No, this is the travel around. Remember, just as we're leaving this canto,
On the outskirts of Dis.
Yeah, we're now departing
but
from
after
Dis
this,
down into the valley.
they make a left turn, so they must be out of the city when they take a left.
Yes, because then they're going along a path that strikes into a valley. Remember, onto that left hand that he turned his feet with left the wall, or we left the wall and went towards the middle, along a path that strikes into the valley, which even up there unpleasant made it stench.
Farinata died in 1264.
So Dante would have known as his heresy because the posthumous excommunication happened between Farinata's death and Dante's death, but I didn't read far enough because I only read to Farinata's death. That's my fault.
1283, which was long before this was written. So yeah, it would have been.
Yep. So that's my mistake for not reading as far.
I just took it from Wikipedia.
It's my fault for not reading as far as I should have. Like I said, I was reading through. I'm like, oh, okay, he was not considered a heretic at the time of his death. He was buried with full fucking, with full service, etc. Should have kept reading a couple more years.
I do like how Farinata just straight up insults Dante's ancestors. Probably not a wise thing to do to the only living soul in hell.
I mean, literally every damn soul that he's come across has fucking insulted him in some way.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's...
Bitter enemies of mine they were, and of my ancestors and of my party. I had to scatter them not once, but twice. Mm. And then Dante comes back with, they were expelled, but only to return from everywhere. Not once, but twice. And art your men, however, have never mastered.
Yeah, I mean,
savage.
I mean, for 14th century, yeah, that's pretty much fucking the burniest of burns. Like, dude, your fucking army suck. Get the fuck out of here,
I keep thinking of the all of these infighting. I think of it as I think of the Guelphs like the Democrats, and the Ghibellines like the Republicans. But then, okay, you can be a Democrat, right? But you could be a centrist, or you could be on the far right. You could be the Squad versus Mansion.
I was trying to avoid American politics when talking about Dante, but sure.
I mean, he's a human, right? I mean, politics are going to be like this everywhere.
No, you're right. It's just if I was going to draw parallels between the black and the white gulfs, I'd be drawing a parallel between the whites and the reds during the Bolshevik Revolution, because it draws the most parallels to like ideological like separation. Just
yeah, I'm just not sure that people are as familiar with
probably
the Russian
not.
Revolution as they are with modern American politics.
Well, or they are going to be familiar with the quote-unquote Russian Revolution, but they're not going to be with the Bolshevik Revolution. They're going to be talking about the one in the fucking 30s.
We always manage to further subdivide ourselves.
Yeah.
That seems to be the art of politics, is when you're keep your enemies subdivided but keep yourself united, and that can be like very hard.
Well, but that's just in group versus out group, and that's existed before. Well, I won't say before politics, because technically this would just then be like tribal or family politics in the technical sense of it. But before politics as we understand it today, like this is a byproduct of communal species and in-group and out-group otherizing, due to survival instincts brought up by our evolutionary nature. As I was talking about with Brooks and Sunday and Resi a week ago or so now, we are actually finding evolutionary evidence of why we have these certain hierarchies of desires, needs, otherizing, so on and so forth, like down to the genetic level. We're actually finding this evidence.
Okay, so I just now got to 79, which is what you were talking about with Ancon. But the face of this is Musa's translation, but the face of the queen who reigns down here will glow not more than 50 times before you learn how hard it is to master such an art. So he's talking about 50 lunar months, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's talking specifically about the moon. So it's saying,
right.
It will glow no more than 50 times. So within 50 months, you will learn. Now I don't know entirely the context, how hard it is to master such an art, but yeah, the face and the face of the lady in question here is the moon. So in the context of how he would have it being the identity of the moon who reigns in hell, that would be Proserpina.
Or for
because
those of you who know the Greek more, Persephone, yes, because Proserpina, well, we use that word as a root for many modern words. Persephone is the mythology that most people know. So just for the audience.
So when he said, I think the art that he's talking about is a continuation of his conversation earlier with Farinata, when he says that Farinata's men have not mastered the art of returning from exile, essentially.
Well, but it is also the return from exile could be 4 years. Just over 4 years is the implication. The other way that you can interpret this is the mastering of the art in this time period is also when we get the European concept. We already had this concept in Asia, but the European concept of 10,000 hours to master. That would be roughly 5 years worth of work. And considering in many trades there's one season a year out of the 4 that you do not practice your trade, you end up having to do other labor because your trade is not useful during that particular season. You end up having 48 months when you break that down to the 5 years, or 40 months when you break it down to the 5 years.
Well, 5 years would be 60 months.
Yeah, but remember, one season out of each removed. So a year and a season removed.
It seems like he's talking about the art that he's referring to is the art of survival.
Mm-hmm. But any art would take. What my argument was, in this time period, any art, be it the art of war, the art of painting, the art of writing, the art of anything, was 10,000 hours to become a master of.
This is probably him saying that within that amount of time, 50 lunar months, your son will die. That's when you will learn how hard it is to master such an art, because he will not have survived.
Maybe. Is that when his son died? I thought you
That
said.
is the consequence of I don't know.
I mean,
looked it
I'm
up.
yeah, I don't know
I don't
this
see a
one.
I don't see a biographical history of Guido. I see it of his father, but I haven't been able to find Guido. So I guess his name would have been Guido Cavalcanti, right?
Yeah, Guido del Montefeltro is the name I'm getting when I look him up.
No, Guido Cavalcanti, like that's the name under which his Wikipedia page exists.
Okay. Why did it come up something else then? Fucking stupid thing.
Guido of the Cavalcantis, I guess you would say.
Well, according to this, he died in August of 1300, so if I remember correctly, Dante lived a little bit longer than that. Yeah, 21 years longer, so yeah, Guido's dead, but I don't know if that's 50 months from when Farinata
I don't know
died.
that he's dead. Like this takes place in an earlier year, right? So let's see, when exactly does it take place? I always look this up and I always forget.
1264 is
like
when
1300.
Yeah, and 1264 is when Farinata died. The time period
it's Easter. It's the Holy Week.
Well, yeah, but Guido Cavalcanti died in 1300. His father died in 1264, so it was not 50 months apart, no matter how you square it.
No, it would be that number of months after this conversation happened. So it would be March 24th and 25th of 1300.
And
but it was written later than that.
Yes, but even
so it is.
But like I was saying is.
Set,
go ahead.
Sorry, the poem is specifically set from the night before Good Friday to the Wednesday after Easter in the spring of 1300. So as of the time of writing, or like as of the setting of this story, Guido is still alive.
Yes, but in between the setting and when it is actually written, he has died, and Dante should have known that it was not 50 months. So there's some other significance to this. And I don't know what it is.
Well, it was published in 1320.
Mm-hmm. And
so 50 months would be a
quarter of that.
Like for what, 4 years or so? A little over 4 years?
Yeah, because so that would have been approximately, spring to summer of 1304.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's saying that in 1304 he'll learn how difficult it is.
But then how? See, here's my thing. But if this is talking about his son dying, as you intimated earlier, that time period doesn't match up. Because
or learning some other harsh lesson.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't know what that other harsh lesson would be, because at least by what we understand, by what we just looked up here, because the son died in 1300, it would not, like, no matter how you square it, if it's 50 months from the time period of the story, that's wrong, because it's way sooner than that he dies. If it is 50 months from the time period that his father passes, again, that's wrong, because it's multiple years past that. So it's like, I don't think it's that implication of Guido's death. I think it is some other thing that would have happened. What was another significant thing that happened in Florence in 1304? It would be my question, because that's probably what this is intimating.
I realize the art they're talking about is mentioned in the terse set, starting with line 49. If they were banished, they returned on all sides. I answered him the first time and the second, but yours have not acquired that art right. He's talking about the art of returning from exile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Rich brought that up. Your brain fog must have.
Yeah, but it's the other way around.
Yeah.
It's him it is he who is prophesying Dante's exile and return.
Yeah.
So within 50 moons, he will learn how difficult it is because he was exiled and had to return. And he's saying it will be 50 months before you know how hard that is.
Yeah.
In other words, what I went through is what you're going to go through.
Mm-hmm. So
That's what he's telling Dante.
You will
I
be
had the impression that
exiled.
Dante was saying this.
No,
but
this is
it's being said to Dante. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so it's being said to Dante basically that you are going to be exiled and you will learn within not more than 50 moons how hard it is to return.
Okay, so here is the significance of the time period. I had to go dig through the some of these history textbooks. 1304 in the spring is when the Ghibellines re-enter Florence. So that would be the 50 months he's talking about. Spring of 1304 is when the Ghibellines re-enter Florence. I was like, hold on, because we have to then go from here. If this is happening on Good Friday, that would be this. So they re-enter. It doesn't give a specific day. It just says the first quarter of 1304. The thing is these timelines are going to. I think I'll draw it up on the Miro board, but I think with the way that we're doing this through going through every commentary, doing extra history, extra anthropology, like cross-disciplinary tie-ins, we may be able to devise a more accurate timeline than any of the others. Even if we get like actual implication wrong on what some of the commentary means and what some of the tercets mean, we may actually still be able to get that timeline more accurate than any of these current books do. Just because we have more info.
I'm curious how long that is exactly.
5 times 28 times 10. Shit. 40. 600 days.
It's 50 times 29.53 days, which is 1,476.5 days. So that's 4 years and 16 and a half days. And since this is happening, I think it's still Good Friday, right? We're not into Holy Saturday yet, I don't think.
I don't know
like
where
March
that time
27th.
period's passing right now because we're in the middle of like all this other crap I'm just not thinking about. I think we're still on Good Friday.
There's time of day clues as well. Like
yeah,
we're getting further along in the day.
but
and it's 16 and a half days. So it'd be the 23rd, 24th, 25th, and then 2 weeks after that. In 1304.
I doubt he was that accurate with it. He was probably just going by phases of the moon as seen on Earth, as opposed to that highly specific of a time period.
They were very. I mean, people tracked the moon like they.
Well, yeah, I just don't think it would have. The calculation would have been down to the decimal point. Is all I was getting at. It would have been rounded to even days. That's all I mean.
1300, March 22nd. How long before?
Are you using GPT?
Yeah, I'm trying to give it specific.
Well, GPT sucks at math, just so you know. The way I would do it is we go by the number of months that are given, lunar months. Those are 29-day months, but more accurately on Earth they are viewed as roughly 28-day months by what we can see of the phases of the moon by the average non-astronomer. So you would see it as that time period, and that's what like when I did the math,
Okay, so
we come up at
calculating
the first quarter.
April 6th, 1304. Even if it's off by a day, because we don't know what time of day it is.
Technically, it would be off by about 6 days from what I calculated, but close enough. Yeah, that technically puts it at the beginning of the second quarter, but...
Oh, I want to point something out here, specifically in relation to Dante. In March 1302, Dante was condemned to exile for 2 years. So if you say that that his trip into hell, purgatory, and heaven was in spring of 1300, and he is exiled for 2 years in the spring of 1302, that puts his return in terms of like the specific point in time at which he would have been allowed to return at the spring of 1304.
Yeah, when the Ghibellines were returned.
Yeah.
When the Ghibellines return at the same time period to Florence as he does.
Yes.
I'm not saying he returns with them. They just return in the same proximity to each other.
But it's it also mentions that he took part in several attempts by the White Guelphs to regain power in Florence, but which failed. So that may be the mention of how hard it is to master the art. Like, he goes through several attempts to regain power, all of which fail. And so that is the art, like, the difficulty that is being mentioned.
Well, yeah, but what art is that? The art of failure, the art of success, the art of diplomacy, the art of
return after exile.
Well, yeah, but that is
which
phrase.
Is exactly what he talked to the other guy about.
Yeah,
like, that was the conversation.
Yeah, but this is a phraseology. What I am meaning is what does that mean? Because exile is a imposed thing by governments. This is a return that is not just about exile in the same way. This is also about spiritual like return and all this. So like this is what I mean. Like what does that mean to this? Because Dante never means it just one way.
Sure.
You know, and that's the thing. Could it be the art of learning the error of your ways? Learning the brutality of war is wrong? What is it? Because all of these things are touched upon up to this point.
Fair enough. Fun bit of trivia. Apparently in June of 2008, nearly 7 centuries after his death, the City Council of Florence passed a motion rescinding Dante's sentence.
Goddamn,
I love it when they do
pieces.
symbolic bull. Yeah, I love it when they do bullshit.
Well, it's like, how do you retroactively repeal an exile, bitch? It's already over.
Yeah.
Like, okay, fine. Posthumous removal of a crime. Okay, so he's no longer a felon. Okay, cool. Oh, he's no longer a heretic. Okay, cool. All that stuff I get, but I removed his exile.
No, his exile was actually never removed because he refused to pay the fine, which made his exile permanent, effectively. Yeah, it extended his exile to perpetuity.
But I don't know why you're looking at me and breathing at me. Go that way.
No, I mean, it is what it is on that one, because to me, for example, when the UK government issued an apology and a reversal of the sentence on Alan Turing, that made sense. That was not just symbolic. That was righting a historical wrong. This doesn't seem like righting a historical wrong. This just seems like a fluff piece, and therefore, why? Why? You know, like, I can draw a parallel to somebody else who was unjustly punished, but Dante wasn't truly unjustly punished. He was unjustly punished in the eyes of the church and things like that, but he was justly punished because the exile had to do with monetary exchange. What? What did you... I don't even want to know what the interest on that bitch would be. Who paid that fine?
I mean, presumably no one.
I know, but I mean,
Well,
like,
it was forgiven.
yeah, I know, but think about how big that fine had to be after that many centuries.
I'm sure. Well, I mean, there may not have been interest on that because
no, there was, because remember that was one of the things that the banks got accused of by more holy people was of usury because of that interest.
Well, I figured the fine was not applied by the banks. Granted, I don't know if the Black Guelphs would have been those who.
In Florence, anything to do with money was controlled by the banks. Just to put it mildly. Like, it's slightly hyperbolic, but, like, in the grand scheme of things, it's accurate.
Fair enough.
And Rich could back me up on that one when he gets back from Butte. It's like the banks had ridiculous amounts of control in Florence at this time period. So much so that they rivaled the papacy.
Yeah, Florence was, I don't know, close to a superpower by Italian standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Iron Bank.
Yeah, I mean, to put it in that term, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, we are talking about what most people would relate to inaccurately, but just because it's not accurate to where it began. But this is what most people would relate to the Medicis. And if you the Medici, the Medici family.
Oh, Medici. Okay, yes. Sorry. I was the first time you heard it, I heard the words meta and cheese, and I was very confused.
Meta cheese. Yeah, but a lot of people will relate it to that. But technically, this practice predates them. They just were the assholes who perfected it into a fucking science. But the power struggle predates them by several centuries, technically. Ugh. There's another tangent into your history class if you're taking history along with literature students, because the Medici family is probably one of the most ridiculous families you will ever learn about if you have a decent teacher.
Oh, and this is a very far off, interesting reference. So, since he was never able to go back to Florence, he stayed in Verona as a guest of Congrande the First della Scala, who allowed him to live, this says, in certain security and presumably a fair degree of prosperity. And as such, Congrande was admitted into Dante's paradise, which we will see in Canto 8.
Well, yeah, you can't exactly write your patron into hell.
Fair.
I mean, think about it. Could you imagine, I forget the name of the piece now, but the one that Mozart wrote for his patron, if he had suddenly said, hey, you're a prick, give me more money?
Well, the fact that
actually, Mozart would have been one to do that.
The fact that he was written in here at all is a little odd, because this is happening, from this perspective, 13 years prior to, 12 or 13 years prior to this. So, like, why would he be anywhere here at all when the guy's not dead?
I have my point. Like, some of these...
Maybe it was his father?
Well, no. It's probably the person, because he puts certain people who are technically still alive when Dante is dead, so long before he wrote, or long after he wrote the book. He puts certain members who are still alive in hell. So these are choices that he makes for social commentary. I just don't know necessarily what that commentary means.
Fair enough.
Because there's a guy in, I think it is Canto 20, who's still alive after Dante's dead. But he's in hell in Dante's Inferno. And let's be honest, I don't blame him. There's how many of like Ancom and Rich, you're still believers. How many people would you like to see cast into a few of these circles?
I mean, I'm one of the hopefuls who thinks that everyone is can be saved.
Yeah, I'm talking about your humanistic aspect, or human nature aspect of, yeah, this guy's a prick, fuck him. I'm sure there's a few.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that I can overcome that. But
you can still think it for catharsis. Whether or not you want to, whether or not you would pull the lever, Kronk, and send them there is different. You can still think it for catharsis.
I mean, I can't get to the point where I take joy in like the way Virgil says we're supposed to take joy in seeing the suffering of the damned.
I can for a moment of people like my go-to example for people here in America, Fred Phelps. If you know that name, I'm sorry. But if you don't, when you look him up, you're gonna exactly know what the fuck I mean. And do you guys both know him?
I know who he is, yes.
Rich?
I've heard the name before, but I don't know.
Fred Phelps is the patriarch of the Westboro Baptist Church.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of a different one.
Yeah, Fred Phelps is the patriarch of the Westboro Baptist Church. There's a, if I still believed in hell in the same way that you guys did, there's a few places I would send Fred. Sorry, somebody who is gonna petition funerals and like hold up hateful, bigoted signs at funerals of veterans and homosexual people. Yeah, that dude can get fucked.
All right. I'm fading pretty quickly, so I'm gonna go. But
well, yeah, and we're about done on this one too, because now we're getting into jokes instead of commentary. So it was wonderful having you here. I'm so glad you could make it. I'm sorry your throat hurt, because it's usually fun to have you read too, because you end up getting giggles on certain words that are fun as well.
Indeed.
So have a good day, my friend. Feel better.
All right. Bye.
See ya.
And with that one, I will end the stream. Thank you for joining us until next week when we start doing Canto 11. And hopefully we have Radham with his beautiful artwork. If not, we will still have the commentary. Hopefully I'll ask him over this week if he reads it, what he might want to say if he can't make it. Because these are, as we get into Canto 11, we are going to get into some of the more occult knowledge requirements that, honestly, most modern theology students don't know, unless they dig heavy into it, because there is a lot of occult knowledge that was known to 14th century Catholics that are unknown to modern Christendom as a whole, because it has been considered forbidden knowledge. But until then, have a good week.